Hello everyone, welcome to another amazing video. If you enjoy the content, I ask that you subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the upcoming parts and new videos. Now, without further ado, let's get into today's video. Are you ready? Let's go.
The story begins with our main character playing his virtual game. He and his companions have just finished an event, so the others are logging out of the game, and our main character is about to do the same. However, before logging out, he decides to open the treasure chest he just received. Upon opening it, a blinding light shines. It turns out his mastery reward is a golden ticket that allows him to cross over to the Azure world. He initially thought it was a bad reward and a scam, but driven by curiosity, he uses it. To his surprise, he is instantly sucked into a black hole. Shortly after, he wakes up in an open field and realizes he's on the 10-mile slope next to the beginner's village. This confuses him because he remembers turning off his VR, but surprisingly, he doesn't have a VR device with him. He had prepared for transmigration but wasn't ready to become a monster. Thinking of becoming a monster, he imagined there would definitely be some cheats. Even a slime could improve. But he was wrong. A slime crushes him to death. A goblin smashes his skull with a hammer. And even a same-level skeleton easily defeats him. This outcome greatly discourages him, and the only benefit of transmigrating is that he resurrects relatively quickly after death. Even the slime that killed him a few times is already at level 2. With this, he soon realizes that he can also level up, but then remembers that he is the weakest monster in this place. Still, this doesn't stop him from finding another way to level up. Shortly after, 2 adventurers are carrying out their novice task and fighting some skeletons. The knight kills the skeletons in front of him, leaving only the one behind. Then, the mage notices that the surviving skeleton is acting strangely, but the knight explains that characters in Azure are all hyper-intelligent, so a skeleton behaving strangely is unusual. Unexpectedly, the skeleton in front of him lightly strikes him, offending the knight, but that wasn't enough. So, the main character grabs something from the nearest bush and crafts a sign calling the knight an idiot. Now the knight knows he can't let this slide, so he attacks, making the skeleton smile because it knows its plan worked. Without hesitation, he steps away from the scene and lets the other skeleton do the dirty work. Since the knight has aroused the monster's hatred, when Azure monsters are awakened with hatred, they prioritize attacking players in a specific radius. If you kill them, the experience gain is shared among all who helped in the kill. He knew this because he has been an Azure player for 10 years, so he is familiar with everything. Here, even if he becomes a monster, he could still do something about it and find out the truth about his transmigration. Soon after leveling up, the first thing he will do when reaching level 3 is to kill the slime 10,000 times. Meanwhile, on the World Channel forum, newcomers are complaining about a level 5 skeleton harassing them. This commotion caught the attention of a level 25 knight, who without hesitation declares that he will help them deal with the skeleton on the 10-mile slope. The main character is enjoying the sun with his guards and his own enslaved slime, which he managed to dominate because as their levels increase, their intelligence also increases. Therefore, he can finally give instructions and communicate, but his day is ruined when the level 25 knight suddenly attacks him from behind. He didn't even have a chance to escape and was killed on the spot. Fortunately for him, death only makes him lose half of the experience gained. With this, he realizes he was being too arrogant but knows he can't let it slide. So he plans to make the knight pay, just like he did with the slime. However, living in the game for 8 days, he realizes that 2 days have passed in reality. So he realizes he needs to quickly find a way out because he believes his parents must be worried about him, even if only minimally. But his assumptions were completely wrong because his parents were enjoying their vacation without worrying about him at all. They didn't even bother to send him a message. Meanwhile, the main character decides to level up quickly so that he can change classes at level 20. By that time, he will have a human body and exact his revenge. Shortly after, he takes on a bunch of tasks and kills various monsters. After repeating this non-stop, he reaches level 20 in a single day. Now, he just needs to change classes in the main city, so he heads there. As expected, he is blocked by the guards at the gate and without questioning, is killed on the spot. He immediately resurrects, but his death causes him to lose half of the experience gained. He drops back to level 10. Now he realizes how foolish he is because he just remembered that he is a monster. Shortly afterward, in the Devil Wolf Valley, adventurers are having difficulty dealing with a wolf, but they can't give up the challenge as they need wolf fur to change classes. While discussing their strategy, The archer notices a group of skeletons attacking a lone wolf. They were brutally attacking it with teamwork, which surprised the archer to see with his own eyes. But the wolf wouldn't go down without a fight, so it became enraged, its defense and attack becoming sharper. It was about to take down its opponents along with it, which the archer was trying to convey to his team, but they were still busy discussing. In contrast, the wolf failed to kill its opponents and was being attacked from behind, leaving the archer even more frantic. So his teammates stopped their conversations and went to see where the archer was pointing. To their surprise, monsters were hunting other monsters, and they were much better hunters than they could ever be. Meanwhile, a new player has just entered the game. A fairy welcomes him and introduces him to this incredible VR world called Ash in Azure. He can even synchronize all his 5 senses, including touch, to enjoy delicious food and the scent of flowers at the same time. There are no fixed tasks in Azure. Players need to personally engage in interactions with NPCs, in addition to triggering missions from super intelligent AIs. He can also choose to enter an academy, enhancing his own skills and becoming part of the Azure world. There are 5 basic skills in this world, which are controlling elements, taming monsters, martial arts, engineering, and mind. Each skill has its own sub-skills, and there are almost infinite ways to combine different skills in the virtual world of Azure. He can definitely find the skill that suits him best. After the basics are presented to him, the fairy is about to guide him to get used to his basic movements. For this, the fairy asked the new player to head to the novice training field, the 10-mile slope, and kill 10 low-level monsters. Once he finishes, he can return to the quest. Hearing all this, he was filled with excitement and expectations, but that soon diminished after he passed through the portal and saw all the high-level skeletons waiting to attack him. This confused him, so he dropped his sword, which he shouldn't have done in front of these skeletons. Now defenseless, the skeletons easily surrounded him from all sides, and with that, his fate was sealed. Shortly after, the skeletons are cheerfully carrying their loot. Then, the main character gives small notebooks to the skeletons and instructs them to distribute them to other skeletons. And everyone should have the same equipment, except those with a different body shape like him. All other skeletons should look the same, and when they see high-level players, they should follow the instructions written in that notebook. They should always follow a set of rules. First, everyone should choose a different direction to run when fleeing. The skeletons have a speed that surpasses normal standards, so most players won't be able to catch them. Second, if players are level 5 or below 30, lure them to the meeting point and prepare a 10 versus 1, as they practiced. Third, if the player is above level 30 or has already changed classes, record their player ID. After that, run towards the goblin camps and provoke the goblins, letting the goblins attack the high-level player. Once the player is engaged, they will still gain some experience points. This way, high-level players won't be able to do anything against them. Unexpectedly, the skeletons have a problem with his master plan, which shocks him. But before he can ask the reason, the little skeleton clarifies that they can't read, which shocks him even more. So, he improvises and simply morally instructs them, which they surprisingly understand quickly. After that, he tells them that he will leave them for a while and puts the little skeleton in charge of the team. The little one asks why he has to leave, and he explains that the sky they can see now is small, but in the outside world the sky is truly immense, since the Azure world is so vast that even now there's a shortage of players, and all kinds of cultures intertwine. He then tells the little skeleton that when he reaches a high enough level, there will be a time for him to leave and see the great mountains and rivers. This statement makes the little one's eyes sparkle with hope for the future, while the main character smiles, realizing he's suddenly talking to a monster about this. However, Azure is truly magical. He almost feels like they can all really think deeply about it. After this emotional moment, he bids farewell to all of them and leaves the place. But after a while, he returns because he accidentally took bags full of low-level armor they took from novice players, instead of the materials needed for their transfer, wasting his efforts to look cool. In a scene change, a mage is chasing a rabbit and trying to cast a beast-taming spell on it, but she didn't know that our main character is hiding in the bushes and is waiting for her to cast the spell on the rabbit. Therefore, when she casts it on the rabbit, he knocks out the rabbit, receiving the spell in its place, becoming a mage's pet, while the system congratulates her for acquiring a level 34 skeleton monster as her first pet, since the first pet will be her most important companion throughout her journey in the game. Instead of being happy, she collapses on the ground and starts crying, making the main character feel bad. So, he asks why, to which she responds that it's because she wanted a cute pink rabbit and he looks too ugly to her. Now he realizes he has encountered a shallow idiot, yet he knows it's too late to give up. So, he improvises while summoning all the eloquence he can muster to explain why he kicked the pink rabbit she wanted to tame out of the way. Then, he tells her a story that he is actually an extraordinarily handsome prince. The enemy kingdom oppressed them, but he was always in contact with their princess, so they both fled and got rid of the chains that bound them. However, in the end, they couldn't escape from what the world thought about them, and everyone opposed them being together. Therefore, they could only send letters to each other, delivered by their guards, to talk about their sorrows. Regardless, he never thought that the princess would fall in love with her guard and that she wanted to run away with this guard. With that, he realized that the mage was now starting to believe his story, so he took the story even further, adding that the princess's plans didn't go as she wanted. To his surprise, she underestimated the loyalty of his guard. Even when she tried everything to stop him, the guard still returned to his side. He brought back the princess's resolution letter, but he couldn't warn him of the danger that was inside. The princess was jealous of the prince, who gained the guard's loyalty, so she cursed a letter. From then on, the prince could only live as a skeleton, reviled by everyone. Thus, he committed to lifting the curse and avenging his guard. Now that he had finished inventing his background story, he asked the mage if she could take on this task to fulfill his revenge and restore his original appearance, to which she instantly believed in his story and was excited to help him find his guard so they could be reunited. But he quickly tells her that his guard died to avoid the BL label. She immediately loses interest, so, to convince her again, he tells her that skeletons can exist. So it's easy for him to resurrect a dead man, which she is delighted to hear and regains her enthusiasm to help him. Now that she is fully convinced, she introduces herself as Bubble. After that, they are now in front of the gates of the main city, and the main character is confidently walking to enter the city. However, the guard stops them to inform the mage that her pet skeleton needs to be on a leash to enter the city, which shocks him because he completely forgot about it. Shortly after, he finally enters the city with a leash, and his mistress, being a novice, was enchanted to see all the amazing things inside the main city. He explained that all level 20 players transfer to the city, as the detail of the Azure world is almost the same as the real world. The only city located at the center of the east-west junction has become the commercial and exchange point, making it the most prosperous city in Azure. Then, the mage realizes that there is also a tea shop inside the city, which she is delighted to see, so the main character advises her to have one, as Azure is connected to VR through brainwaves, which can simulate taste. But unfortunately for her, she has no money, so the main character tells her not to worry and gives her a bag of coins that he stole from players to further convince her that he is a prince. With that, she bought a milk tea, which she liked more than the real one. But their peaceful walk was suddenly interrupted by an adventurer shouting at an NPC who bumped into him and is now venting his anger on the NPC because he was furious about being robbed by a skeleton before. But the main character decides not to get involved and was about to leave the scene, but to his surprise, Bubble is not by his side now and is now protecting the NPC. As brave as she was, her level was the opposite, as she is just a level 10 novice. With that, the bully started scolding and mocking her, which left her shaken, but she knew she couldn't do anything. After that, the bully decides to leave, but to his surprise, the main character defeats him and mocks him in the same way he mocked her mistress, showing his level to them, shocking the bully's teammates. But before he could humiliate them further, the NPC girl approached him and thanked him, but decided to take matters into her own hands and went to the player, threatening him to pay, which he still had the audacity to ask why. Then she decides to teach him a lesson he will never forget and defeats him to obliteration. Now Bubble and the skeleton understand that an NPC can be cruel sometimes. After the beating, the player was handcuffed and taken to jail. In a scene change, the three are now inside a cafe discussing the events that happened before. Bubble asks why she was not punished, to which she explains that she knew the guard, so he definitely wouldn't arrest her. And since they helped her, she introduces herself as Yuko, and gives them the address of her fruit shop so that, if they need her, they can visit her there. After that, they went their separate ways, and Skeleton and Bubble are now walking outside. Skeleton tells her that it seems they've stumbled upon a hidden task since Yuko gave them her address. She asks what a hidden task is, to which he explains that it's something she'll encounter later. He advises not to underestimate any NPCs in Azure, as there are various hidden tasks, some without clues. For example, at the end of the third main story, she has to help an old man acquire a refining skill and become a master assassin. Before he could give more examples, he realized they were finally in front of the transfer hall. Without hesitation, they entered. Now inside the transfer hall, she was shocked to realize that this game could be more realistic. As she noticed, they needed to queue up to receive a number. Skeleton reassured her that it's still okay because when there are more people, there will be more windows, so they don't need to wait as long. While waiting, Skeleton told her that the 10th anniversary main mission in Azure would definitely be the biggest ever. During the 9th anniversary, there was already a civil war between the East and West countries. Although 10 years have passed, many new players are still joining, like Bubble, who joined because she heard the game would have significant activity and her classmate dragged her into playing. Then, her number was called, and she went to the counter, handing over the right amount of materials to change classes. Her request was understood, and she was allowed to participate in the class change ceremony without any issues. Meanwhile, Bubble was approached by a guy with a squirrel-like appearance, telling her that she might have been deceived, as he considers himself a know-it-all. And to him, his knowledge is always right. He said he never saw a monster having a secret mission, and even if there were, they would be high-class monsters with intelligence and a super high level. With a smug smile, he tells her she's wrong, sends a friend request, and leaves the scene. With this strange interaction, the mage is now doubting Skeleton's identity. However, before she could think more about it, Skeleton had already finished his class change ceremony and is now in front of her with a new handsome face and an amazing appearance. Bubble was about to cry, which worried Skeleton, who asked the reason. She explained what happened, and without hesitation, Skeleton comforted her and took her to eat something good, making her feel much better. Meanwhile, the squirrel-like guy is inside the bar, drinking and shocked that Bubble rejected his friend request. He was planning to scare Bubble and see what was happening with the monster with her, but she didn't fall into the trap. But since a monster entered the city, there must be many people aware of it, so he wasn't too bothered and was still excited about what the future holds. At the same time, Bubble is enjoying the food Skeleton offers her and eating everything she can get her hands on. Skeleton tells her that he will help her improve and level up in her profession to prepare her for the DV Academy election, as only level 40 players can participate in the entrance exam for Azure's top 3 colleges. Previous participants also have the opportunity to join, with the chance to accumulate important clues and connections. The schools require much more skill and efficiency than normal self-training. There are also various legendary players and NPCs teaching. He is sharing this because something happened to him at the moment of his profession change success. He received an email, surprised that a monster can still have an email, but the content of the email surprised him even more, telling him that someone on the other side of this email would never think that a small monster would change occupation so quickly, and asks if he wants to know why he transmigrated and if he wants to know how to return to the real world. The email tells him to complete the main mission, and his answer will be there, wishing him good luck and saying they will be watching. Remembering what happened made him furious, so he declares loudly that he will win and see who is really messing with him. Bubble unexpectedly responds happily, saying that it's the fighting spirit she also needs to boost. Then she asks for more food. In contrast, he knows he'll run out of money if she keeps eating like that. After eating inside the restaurant, they are now walking outside, but Bubble is still eating, so Skeleton asks her to eat less. Although eating here doesn't make her gain weight, the food is very expensive, and even a rich owner can't keep up with her appetite. She happily responds that she knows, but ignores it and changes the subject, asking what they will do next. Skeleton says they will later go to the DD Academy election exam, and with someone like him as a pet, at his current level of 10, she can practically enter the second exam without issues. Then, they will focus on leveling up so she is ready for the second exam, which is 10 days away, making her very excited. Later, on the 10-mile slope, skeletons, goblins, and slimes are doing their best building their new base, which surprises the main character upon arrival due to the speed of their progress. He had only been gone for 3 days, but it seems they are almost finished. While he is mesmerized by the new fortress, the skeleton notices him, and without hesitation they attack him, but he dodges the attack and realizes they don't recognize him, so he gives them a lesson. Now on the ground, the monster realizes they can't win, but they still remember what their master taught them, so they decide to use their supreme ability, which is to retreat. Now, they are all out of sight and cannot be seen, surprising Bubble, who asks if these are the monsters he considers tamed. He responds that by executing their command to escape, if they can't defeat the opponent, they are considered quite tamed. He then calls the fat skeleton, implying that he is their master, and orders them to stop hiding. The fat skeleton obeys and cheerfully comes out of the ground, immediately asking why he chose to transform. They then sit down and explain what happened. Now that the fat one knows Bubble is their boss, he asks how they progressed so quickly. The fat one explains that they realized the HP and strength of the goblins are stronger than theirs, so they gathered some goblins. Working together, they can already defeat players around level 30, but they found that the chances of escaping are not so high. So, they built a fortress on the surface, which is just a disguise acting as a bunker. After having the bunker, they can quickly escape to the underground. Players have difficulty finding them, and even if they do, players entering the underground are not familiar with the paths. They can choose to exit the underground and kill them. Hearing this intricate plan, he is incredulous and asks if they are really monsters, to which the fat one responds that everyone learns from the best, and that's him. He then tells him to forget it, as he even learned to flatter. He then tells the fat one that this time he is here mainly to level up with his master so they can prepare for the upcoming entrance exam. Therefore, the fat one immediately offers that they can easily join the player hunting with them, for which he gets scolded for being foolish, as Bubble clearly does not engage in PK. Now that he knows the fat one doesn't have bright ideas, Skeleton suggests that the fat one takes his subordinate monsters and Bubble to kill other monsters and level up. During this time, he needs to get accustomed to the skills and the new body he has after the occupation transfer. They also need to wait for the Academy entrance exam notification. Normally, pets that surpass the player's level show signs of decreasing loyalty, but they don't need to worry about that. Under the circumstance that their levels have a significant difference, they should be able to receive a good ranking. Now that he has finished explaining what to do, he encourages them to hurry up and level up. Bubble only needs to level up to level 39, and there are no restrictions for pets. He will also try his best to increase their levels, since there is temporarily no time to gather materials for a second transfer. Time passes quickly as they enjoy their time together, train, and the main character's subordinates even manage to capture the knight who killed him before. A short while later, a messenger pigeon arrives to deliver Bubble's entrance exam notice. They receive it happily, while the knight is completely defeated and stuck to the ground. After opening the letter, Skeleton is surprised to find that there are so many strong players this year. He thought they were already strong enough, but they are actually ranked 9th. Seeing this, instead of getting discouraged, he gets excited, thinking that this exam will be fun. Meanwhile, in the current world, Secretary Miss Chong brings the data that Boss Dong requested and puts it on his desk. She then asks him what happened to Wei Dong, one of their colleagues, as she hasn't seen him for a few days. He explains that Wei Dong has been transferred to another department to conduct some scientific technological experiments, so he won't be here for a while. His parents, who were traveling the world, were happy since their son wouldn't bother them as much, and they happily cooperated with their son's arrangements. Boss Dong asks her why she's suddenly concerned about Wei Dong and if she's thinking about him, making her so embarrassed that she leaves while blushing. Meanwhile, a pink-haired girl named Schwer is standing in front of a mansion and is welcomed by a beautiful lady who calls her aunt. She is welcomed, so Schwer doesn't hesitate to go up to meet Bubble. Coincidentally, Bubble has just left the game, so without hesitation, Schwer jumps on her and hugs her a bit. Schwer then asks if she's having fun playing Azure, to which Bubble happily tells her what happened inside Azure and the joyful adventures she had meeting Skeleton. Schwer, after hearing this, becomes curious and asks Bubble to tell more about the skeleton she met, to which Bubble immediately tells the invented story of Skeleton, which she believes is 100% true. A few moments later, Schwer finishes listening to Bubble for a whole day and wonders if Bubble is dating the game characters, which she immediately denies to avoid suspicion of being strange. But Schwer doesn't mind, as she tells her that after finishing her work, she will enter the game to find Bubble and see her little skeleton too. After that, she leaves. Now alone in her room, Bubble lies on her bed, reminiscing about the fun time she spent in Azure and can only sigh, wishing it were all real. However, she decides not to dwell on it and go to sleep. But that's not what happened. A few moments later, on the slope of 10 miles, inside the skeleton camp, Bubble is staring intently at Skeleton, who asks why she logged in at that hour. She explains that she couldn't sleep, so she came to check. She makes up an excuse, saying she was afraid he might be lying to her and secretly escape. Seeing her worried, Skeleton sits down and reassures her, saying he'll always be there. Hearing these words makes her feel secure, and she easily falls asleep. The next day, the annual final exam rankings finally begin. Thousands of people gather in one place, and many merchants, businessmen, and scammers are selling their goods outside the entrance. Skeleton then explains to her that the candidates for the entrance exam are reduced from 30,000 to 2,000, and they narrow down the area and level, choosing only 30 people in the end. Each exam also affects the competition of all forces. The palace also broadcasts live streams and betting matches. Each exam is also a carnival for everyone. Watching this familiar scene, he recalls that before transforming, he was just the president of a small guild and always watched the live stream. But this time he could finally go to the exam venue. Suddenly they are greeted by Yuko, so they greet her back. She proudly declares that she will take care of them. Now together, they enter the temple. Yuko notices that Skeleton has been looking at the dubious manual all this time, so she advises him to pay attention to where he's walking so he stops reading. But he explains that these manuals are important because they contain a lot of information about the examiners. She tells him that much of the information in those manuals is inaccurate and that it's too late to study them. Many people study the information right after being notified, so she throws away the book and offers her own manual made by her. To his surprise, the manual is very detailed. Now he wonders how Yuko, an NPC, would know anything about the exam. A few moments later, they are sitting, waiting for Chilao to appear so the contest can begin. Shortly after Chilao arrives, although he is one of the top 5 power holders in the Azure world, he stumbles and falls face first on the ground, making the atmosphere awkward as others question his true power. The guard helps him up, for which he is grateful. Then, he begins his speech, congratulating everyone who passed. However, he reminds that every year there's a possibility of a deviation, so he encourages everyone not to lose hope. This exam is divided into the first exam and the reassessment, and it is filled with aspects of wisdom, skill, and ability to test the player's capability. Next, everyone can pick up their number plate and enter the first location. He decides not to talk much, so they can start. Therefore, the guard immediately opens the portal, and everyone has already picked up their number plate, so the exam begins. The announcer starts the broadcast of the Divine Academy of Azure and welcomes all viewers to the 10th entrance exam competition. After introducing themselves, they explain the whole situation and that there are 2,000 participants in this exam, but only 30 will be chosen. The first test consists of 3 sections: body, wisdom, and weapon. On the island, there are 500 items corresponding to each section. The player must collect at least 3 items to meet one of the standards. Once 2 standards are met, they will have passed. Due to the requirements, players taking the exam must have their level below 40. The physical assessment needs to be collected, and lower-level players can only pass through teamwork. But the quantity of ghosts makes it so that once united, it's not enough to be divided among all. So, how will they choose? The following is the instrument evaluation for players needing expertise in assembling instruments. Every 3 parts can be assembled into a qualified piece, and all these parts come from a whole that was broken into 500 pieces. Selectively and carefully finding the perfect fitting parts is not an easy task. The last is the wisdom test. Scrolls scattered across the island need 3 of them to be gathered to complete a formation. Not only does this formation satisfy the exam standards, but it can also serve as transfer coordinates, becoming a crucial part of passing this exam. And now, the players have already arrived on the island. What interesting events will happen this time? The announcer puts all his energy into the exam to take a look and enjoy this fascinating game. Meanwhile, the ghost marten suddenly smells prey and, in an instant, attacks, leaving a trail of blue flame. But unfortunately for her, her opponent was stronger, so she turns into a popsicle, just like other ghost martens that encountered Skeleton. While Skeleton didn't think this mission would involve restraining a monster like this, it seems like a good opportunity to test his new abilities, and with a smile, he declares that the game officially begins. Meanwhile, a group of lower-ranking players is hiding in the bushes. The Tiger Lady tells them to listen, as she explained that the Ghost Marten is extremely fast, but her defensive turning ability is weaker. So the first thing to do is model her course of action, and then they can organize people to surround her, and then attack her. But they've already waited for a few hours, and there has been no activity, so they wonder if they might be in the wrong place. The warrior reacts to what she said, and asks if she doubts his gut feeling. He expresses his disdain and warns that he has a very bad temper, and if it weren't for the exam that prevented him from attacking her, he would have already beaten her. After hearing this musclehead talk, the cat lady retreats in her statement, stating that what the tiger lady says makes sense because she is a formation mage, and only she can decipher the formation. After waiting a few more minutes, the cat lady is quick and suggests that she will check the situation first. The warrior tries to discourage her, but he is ignored. A few moments later, the warrior is crouched, still trying not to reveal his location, while being urinated on by a dog. Suddenly, the cat lady comes back and tells them that there is no need to hide, and that there are no signs of a ghost marten within a radius of 10 miles. She questioned a passing player, since the exam doesn't allow them to ask on forums. Apparently, the marten has already been killed by a trainer, which really angered the warrior, as he was urinated on by a dog. In a scene change, Skeleton is standing on the edge of a cliff. He realizes that something is wrong. He has walked around, so he wonders why there are no ghost martens. He has only killed about 200 so far. At the same time, the announcer informs the viewers that they have just received a message. In the 2 hours since the start of the exam, a player named I Want to Pink Bubbles Pat with a level of about 61 has killed more than 200 ghost martens. Normally, players' levels are restricted to 40 and below, but pets don't have this limit, although they have never seen a pet with a higher level than its owner. As everyone knows, if the pet's level is too high, it will lead to an inability to gain loyalty and result in a setback for the owner. Meanwhile, Skeleton was visited by the cat lady, who asked, as she heard he was selling martens. Seeing a potential customer, Skeleton greets her as a dealer and shows her the goods. Now that the cat lady sees them with her own eyes, she immediately asks how much they cost, to which he firmly states it's 50 gold coins per piece with no bargaining. Hearing that it costs so much, the cat lady gets irritated and calls him a cheat, as 1 gold is equivalent to $100 in real life. But Skeleton has his ways and quickly deflects the situation, carrying her like a princess, using what he learned from quantum rhythms. He tries to convince her with his charm. The cat lady tries to resist, but Skeleton is too much for her, suggesting he would lower the price if she let him pet her for half a day, which she tried to resist hard but, as expected, failed. A few moments later, she returns to her teammates with the skins she earned. Then, the warrior realizes that she only got 6 skins when they clearly have 3 people, so he asks why. To which she is perplexed about how he ranked higher than her with that IQ. So, she clarifies to him that if they don't need to fight the ghost martens, why would they burden themselves with bringing a soldier? To bring him, they need to break 3 formations, so she suggests he just stay there. Hearing this, the warrior now knows he's in trouble. Therefore, he draws his weapons, but unfortunately for him, they were 1 step ahead. So he is immediately bound by a tentacle, dropping his weapon and preventing him from retaliating. The cat lady tells him that, first of all, players in the initial test cannot attack each other, and even if she let him go, he wouldn't be able to hurt them, but they can limit the player's movements. This is the initial formation of Hong Lian, which was launched in his previous position, as they planned to abandon him after they finished fighting the 6 martens anyway. She tells him they are just following the rules and hopes fate doesn't make them meet again as they leave the area. Meanwhile, another group is wondering why there are no ghost martens, so they assume it's a bug. But suddenly, Skeleton appears before them, displaying his treasures and asking if they would like to buy some. Somewhere on the island, 2 competitors have now acquired 2 formation balls and almost cleared the level. They notice how interesting Skeleton is, so the woman asks Guqian if he wants to keep playing there for a little longer, to which he replies that playing in the first test is a waste of time. The next level is important, so he hopes they can see that vampire skeleton in the next level. Then, they notice that some players have already cleared the level, so they decide to hurry. At the same time, the announcer states that the leading hunters have already begun clearing the level. However, 3 specific players have now caused many others to fail this level because there are no more ghost martens to hunt. Normally, 2 players work together to kill the ghost martens to collect vice pieces or break the formation, but today, many players can't fulfill the first requirement. Not only that, the price range of these monsters is indeed a bit too high, so they wonder what I Want to Pink Bubbles Pat wants to do with all that money. Meanwhile, somewhere in the desert where pieces are scattered on the ground, Bubble realizes that they suddenly got a lot of money, so she asks Yuko what she thinks Skeleton is doing. But Yuko is busy and cannot be bothered, as the exam for mechanical devices is harder than she expected. There are so many pieces, It's like a 500-piece puzzle that has been mixed and spread across the desert plain. Find 3 puzzle pieces and combine them to form a part and clear the level. According to the information she gathered earlier, where a player finishes their strength exam, they will come here to pick device parts, and it would be easier to clear the level by working together with others. But it has been so long, and there are still only so many players. Therefore, she wonders why others haven't passed the strength exam yet, but she didn't know that this result was because of her teammate, and now he is causing a standstill, a deadlock. Without hesitation, he ran towards them. However, a bear dad suddenly stopped him, asking if he wanted a ghost marten skin, just like he was doing with the other competitors. Now that he's in front of another capitalist, he realizes that this big bear is the other reason why there are no more ghost martens to hunt. So, he is straightforward about it and asks him, to which the big bear responds that he only killed 100 of them, so there should still be more. Meanwhile, the commentator announces that the 2 biggest scoundrels have finally met and are now on the edge of their seats, wondering what will come from the meeting of these 2 rascals. It seems that these 2 want the same customer, so they assume they will fight. Meanwhile, Skeleton now realizes that there are barely any ghost martens left, while the big bear didn't think there would be anyone besides him in this round who would kill so many martens. So, they got a little heated, and it seemed like they were about to engage in a fight since both sell ghost marten skins. This outcome really excited the commentator, as he already assumes they are starting a fight. And these 2 rivals seem quite jealous of each other, because they are in the same industry, but also enemies. Without a doubt, these guys are about to fight. However, the commentator's assumptions were completely wrong because now the 2 greet each other, since both realize that together they have monopolized the current marten skin market. More than that, the price is theirs to set. Witnessing this, they could only wait for what would happen next. Now they offer the skin to the nearest player, and still sell the skin for 50 gold coins to him. But now each player can only get 2 of them. If he wants 3, he'll need to ask another player for help, and they might even give a discount of 5 gold coins, which can be accumulated. The bear was surprised, but, as expected, Skeleton has a quick brain. He even assumed that Skeleton had done advertising before. At the same time, word spread about their business adventures, and because of that, players began to gather in front of them, while commentators were astonished to witness this with their own eyes, as they had never seen this kind of situation in all their years as commentators. Before, there were players with incredible skills to quickly kill several ghost martens without worrying about others. They would finish their own work and leave. Meanwhile, Bubble is having a fever seeing all the money added to her inventory. Now she can probably drink milk tea until she dies, but Yuko doesn't like it, as she asks Bubble to open her chat panel with her pet. In a scene change, Skeleton is selling skins while using his wrist to flirt with girls at the same time. Then, he receives a call and answers it, only to be scolded by Yuko, telling him to hurry up and arrive soon, because without his cooperation, they won't be able to finish the 2nd level, and time will soon run out. Meanwhile, on the other side of the forest, other players are gathering in one place. They are in trouble because they can't afford the skins, and if they don't go to the 2nd level now, there won't be enough time and they will get stuck. But they can't attack Skeleton because his level is too high. Suddenly, another player, who is in the shadows, suggests that if they can't attack, they can use other methods. They can work together and reclaim what is rightfully theirs. In a scene change, Yuko is having a fit of rage because Skeleton hasn't arrived yet. Coincidentally, Skeleton appeared running towards them in a hurry, but unfortunately, he is being chased by a group of players accusing him of what he did, while the bear transforms into its 2nd form like a snake, wrapping around Skeleton as he runs. Bubble, in the crowd, confused about who they are chasing and what they did, asks, to which a player responds that she should be careful with that pet ahead because he is a thief. He killed all the ghost martens and demanded to sell them for ridiculously high prices. Who knows what kind of master trained him to be such a corrupt pet? Hearing all this, she realizes they are chasing her pet, Skeleton. A few moments later, Skeleton, tired of all this, decides to use his skill that he wanted to reveal later. So he stops running, faces the crowd, points the palm of his hand at them, and uses his ice bomb skill, creating ice in front of them and breaking it in just a second, creating a dust cloud so they can escape. Now hiding behind a rock, like an NPC, he explains how he perfectly executes his skill, saying that he uses the water element. He can control the cold around him like a skeleton, and make the water around him form into a trap. He made the water element suddenly explode into an ice bomb. Now his first skill has been revealed, while the big bear, now a snake, asks how much time he thinks they have. Then he suggests stopping talking and running. A few moments later, Yuko can barely get 20 device pieces, and they only had 7 more hours. There is not enough time, and she sees that Bubble is trying to help, but she knows that without mechanical skill, she won't be able to assemble these device pieces. So, she tells Bubble to stop playing around and take the gears out of her hands. Suddenly, Skeleton has just returned with the big bear, but Yuko was stressed because they could fail the second level because of Skeleton's greed. Therefore, she scolds him and the bear. After her fit of rage and now calmer, she tells them that there is only one other option now. She explains that she observed some device pieces earlier, and they have a pattern. Although the assembled pieces have nothing in common, if they break these pieces into smaller components, they can reassemble them into a proper device. Although she is not sure if they can reassemble them to their original state, she orders Skeleton to continue looking for the remaining pieces. After finding them, he must hand them over to a robot helper, and they must not give up on collecting the pieces. Now that Skeleton is collecting the pieces, the bear asks to join, because he has nothing better to do and is just waiting for his daughter-in-law, who is a formation mage, to arrive here since they promised to meet here after killing the Martins. But before they could continue collecting the pieces, the masked man from before appeared before them. Therefore, Skeleton asks if he is like the other players who want revenge, to which the masked man clarifies that he came to notify them that some players have figured out where he is and are coming after him. He declares that he can help Skeleton stop them. As a cheater, he can sense the same kind within miles. So, he asks why he should help him, to which the masked man explains that it's because he, a high-level pet, raises suspicions of having connections with this year's main task, so befriending him shouldn't bring any harm. Hearing all this from the mouth of the masked man made Skeleton think, so he accepted the masked man's proposal and separated from his group. Before meeting Skeleton, the cat lady reported to the masked man named Yiwu that they leaked the location of Bubble's pet and grouped other players as he had directed. Then, she asks why Yiwu wanted to befriend Skeleton but provoke the wrath of other players to attack him, to which he responds that there must be a reason to befriend him. Of course, others must have noticed him already. He was so greedy after all, but he is not the only one who has the ability to kill so many ghost martins. He also hunted most of them to reduce the approval rate in the first exam. Meanwhile, the commentator is wondering if Yiwu knows that this is a live broadcast because he literally just said that he irritated all the players on purpose. But he is the successor of an assassin alliance, so it's better for them not to question him. Now, in the present, Bubble and her companion are traveling through the desert. They then decide to rest there while looking for other players because Yuko said they are assembling pieces around there, and other players might head to her location. So, Skeleton tells them to hold the players as much as possible to avoid bothering Yuko. Speaking of Skeleton, the bear asks Bubble why his level is much higher than hers, and how she captured him, to which he tries to dodge the question by ignoring the bear. But the bear gently asks what the problem is, to which she explains that it's because Skeleton told her not to reveal his identity. Hearing her excuse, the bear concludes without a doubt that her pet's identity is indeed exceptional, so he knows he needs to figure out a way to befriend him. That way, he can get some clues. Meanwhile, Bubble is sitting, probably because she realized what Skeleton told her, which is that if they ask about her identity, she can act as mysteriously as possible. These top players all have paranoid personalities. The less they understand, the friendlier they will be with them, so they can get more information. Meanwhile, the cat lady found them and immediately informed the other players of their location. In an instant, they surrounded Bubble and the bear, trying to convince her to hand over her pet. But suddenly, they were all bound by Yiwu, while Skeleton used his ice ability to fend off the other players. Using his abilities constantly, he is running out of HP, and there are still many opponents. He claims that he won't be able to escape if captured. Seeing that Skeleton is struggling, Yiwu tells him to come to him since he has the players under control. So, Skeleton did just that, but suddenly acted as if he had lost control of his abilities and cancelled them, just to see if this pet would surprise him more when faced with death. Now Skeleton and Bubble are in a difficult situation, surrounded. The bear is pondering whether to risk his life for some unknown information, as it will be troublesome if he can't get out of this. However, before he makes a decision, Bubbly has had enough of all this, so she decides not to pretend anymore. She raises her wand to summon her pet, casting a summoning circle in front of them. A level 55 slime appears before them, shocking everyone who witnessed it, even surprising the commentators, as they didn't expect her. a level 10 novice to have 2 pets, and a high-level slime at that. It seems she continued to add points to her taming skills in the transfer and even added an extra space for a pet. But training another pet would take a lot of time and money, so it's clearly not beneficial, especially being a level 55 slime. Meanwhile, the priest can't take it anymore and declares that he needs to defeat her to the death, as he has never suffered such humiliation in his entire life, summoning a slime as his opponent. He then asks if she thinks the slime can defeat him, to which she responds by showing him personally and throws her slime in front of them, which suddenly transforms into a gat or slime, startling everyone, even the commentators. Meanwhile, Skeleton is now cornered by players from all sides, so he declares that he can only release that attack. Yiwu was excited to see if Skeleton would show his trump card now, but to his surprise, he just called Bubble and asked her to take him back to the pet space, which she did gladly. He then smiled at Yiwu, mocking him as he was being teleported. Now Yiwu is in an embarrassing situation, and players are annoyed with him for using them, to which he still tries to get away with, but unfortunately it won't work for the second time. At the same time, commentators laugh at Yiwu because they didn't expect someone as proficient in calculations as him to simply be outsmarted by a pet. In a swift change of scene, Skeleton returned to his master's side as the other players had requested. So, now Bubble asks if there's anything else they need, but as expected, seeing all the high-level pets she has, everyone backs off, leaving only the priest, who is with the gang leader Mao. Now that he is alone, he can only ask the slime if he can touch his masculine pectorals. A few moments later, the slime is tied up by some players who fought against them, while Yuko still does her best to assemble the device. Shortly after, she finishes, surprising even the commentator, stating that she is very strong because she managed to disassemble the parts of the device and reassemble them into a new one. She then declares that they still need to make one more to pass, and many players are probably distracted by Yiwu, so they can rest a bit while working. She asks Skeleton why he sold all those skins, as they almost didn't make it on time, to which he justifies that, considering the quantity he killed, it should be enough for some players to come and help. However, he didn't expect there to be another shameless person like him. Even considering the number of Ghost Martins he and the Big Bear killed, there should be a number of players who could pass. But currently, it seems someone else killed more Ghost Martins and didn't bother to sell them. This should have already been calculated, meaning they have a Formation Mage who is not in this stage. Currently, Formation Mages are rarely seen participating, as they are the hardest to cultivate. Because of this, their passing standards are also the easiest. While he is explaining all this, someone teleports in front of them again. Therefore, Skeleton was about to turn the person into an ice pop, but the Big Bear stopped him. He then introduced her as his daughter-in-law, who just finished her formation exam and came to find him, so she poses no danger. He was somewhat right about her not being a danger, but only to them. Not so much for him, as she tells the Big Bear to kneel, which he does immediately. Now that he is closer to her, she bites his ear while venting her anger for what the Big Bear made her go through. After the sweet reunion, she says something to Skeleton, but he can't hear her because she is shy speaking to strangers. So, the Big Bear tells him, informing Skeleton that he has something on him, a formation spell with something like a tracker. With a hand gesture, she breaks the entire formation spell that is on Skeleton. After that, she starts to be shy again. Skeleton then thanks them and now knows why those players always seem to find him. He then wonders who could have put a formation spell on him, and the only player he interacted with a lot is that cat, so he concludes that it was her. If he had known earlier, it wouldn't have been so cheap. After this, the Big Bear and his daughter-in-law decide to leave first, so they say goodbye and promise to meet later. A few moments later, Yuko finally finishes the device. Now they have all the items to level up, while Kitty and the others have found their locations and are trying to stop them. However, they were late. Now Skeleton and his team are about to be teleported to the next level, but before it's completed, he calls Kitty and throws all the skins into the air, smiling coldly as he declares that they will settle their differences in the next level. After completing the level, they are teleported to a beach resort, where players rest after the stressful level, which Bubble enjoyed a lot. They are then greeted by the Big Bear, who is also enjoying his time. Meanwhile, an NPC gives them a swimsuit to wear for the occasion and to wait for the arrival of the other players, which Bubble eagerly anticipates for swimming. However, Skeleton advises her not to do so, as there isn't enough time for that, and he was correct, as the commentator begins the countdown, and after that, the preliminaries are over. They welcome all 28 players who pass the test to the central location for reassessment. The commentator then explains their situation, stating that technically all of them could pass without being caught, with the limit being 30 people, but the reassessment would still take place. The winner of the reassessment will receive the grand prize, and that prize is clues for the new main mission. The ranking will determine if they can receive school resources and guidance from the teachers. After finishing, they start the exam, labeled as the Island Werewolf. Seeing that Bubble is confused as usual, they take the opportunity to explain the rules to her, stating that the test is divided into day and night. During the day, no one can fight. They can form alliances that will be important in the future, and this will be explained later on. Now, their numbers are mixed, and they will be randomly assigned to each player. They will receive another player's number plate, and this exam uses a point system. If they manage to retrieve their own number, they will gain 10 points. Numbers taken that are not their own will only give 1 point. During the night, they can choose one type of energy ability from these 3 energies to cast. Only one energy ability can be cast per night, and they cannot reuse the same energy ability. With the prophet ability, they can check the numbers of 3 players, but if they choose to be a prophet, they lose all defensive abilities and become weaker players. Players who choose to become a werewolf will receive an enhancement, entering berserk mode and doubling their abilities. Once they successfully hunt a player, the hunter will receive the number plate of the victim they hunted. If a target has multiple number plates, a successful attack must specify the number plate the attacker wants. Otherwise, a plate will be randomly given. If multiple players attack a single player simultaneously, each successful attacker will receive a number plate. By choosing to become a guardian, the player will enter lockdown mode. This time, players must stay in their own homes unless there is contact during the day. Otherwise, any attack or hunt will be ineffective during this time. During the day, everyone can choose to ally or exchange number plate information. An alliance request may allow partners to enter each other's homes, though everyone must be cautious, as allies may also attempt to steal number plates. There will be a total of 10 days in this cycle. After these 10 days, the administrator will collect data to determine the rankings. If 3 nights pass without a number plate, the player will be eliminated. If a player has no number plate and receives 2 attacks in one night, they will also be eliminated. However, at the same time, players can enjoy themselves during the day. There are waiters they can communicate with, and they will try to ensure that everyone's needs are met and satisfied. Thus, the commentators advise not to waste any more time, and those with lingering questions about the rules can ask the waiters. After their explanations, they bid farewell and will be awaiting the results. Meanwhile, everyone can return to their homes to discover their assigned numbers, as every night they will be both hunters and prey. Later, Kitty is ecstatic to receive a werewolf enhancement, and knowing it's impossible to form an alliance on the first night, she assumes that the mages will choose to guard this card. Top players are very challenging to hunt, as they are mostly seeded players from large unions. Warriors must choose to be either a werewolf or a prophet, which ranks lower. Now that she understands, she seeks an opponent to kill first, but to her surprise, someone is already behind her, and that someone is Skeleton and Bubble because she intentionally placed a tracking information piece on them, which they didn't like. Completely suppressed, she uses her ultimate ability, just like her master would. Then, she tries her best to escape the situation, but unfortunately for her, Skeleton doesn't care about her reasons, as she is his target from the start. He then approaches her, believing that she can't defeat him, even if she doubles her attributes, and as he has that forbidden risen him, he suggests that she hands over her number plate voluntarily, or he will search her body. But before she can respond, he orders Bubble to help him restrain her. A few moments later, Kitty is now wearing a cute dress, trembling with embarrassment, while Skeleton teases her. Humiliated, she fusses over her dress, and as they already have her number, she asks them to let her go. Fortunately, Skeleton hasn't finished playing with her, so he complies with her request, but warns her that they will visit her again in a few days and tells her that he will personally ask the attendants how many princess dresses they have in her size for future roleplay. With this outcome, she is now questioning her life choices. Meanwhile, the commentators are having fun witnessing this drama unfold live. At the same time, they feel sorry for Kitty as this is being broadcasted worldwide. After some good laughs, they then decide to check on the situation of other players. They go to check on Cyan, who chose the profitability to check the number plates of various players. Unfortunately, his number plate has already been taken by Guling. Basically, high-ranking players are attacking, and low-ranking ones are defending. The confrontation period for this night, the first night, is 2 hours, so it's almost over. The next day, luxurious food is placed on the table, and Skeleton and Bubble are now in swimsuits. They are then greeted by Yuko and the Big Bear, so they discuss forming alliances. But as they can only make one alliance per night, they need to share more information and then determine the order of forming alliances, as well as deciding on offensive and defensive targets. Yuko suggests sharing each other's number plate information so that if one of them has the other's number plate, they can trade first. After all, in cooperation, trust is key. Therefore, they did exactly that. Now that they know each other's number plates, they plan to determine which cards to use first to strategically decide on targets, since they cannot select the same card ability the following day. So, during the day, they need to communicate with other players to gather more information about their number platees. Hearing all of this, Skeleton agrees with them. However, there are only 4 hours allocated for rest during the day, and before doing all of this, he agreed to swim in the ocean with Bubble first. And that's exactly what he did. A few moments later, Guling appeared in front of Bubbly and Skeleton and decided to ask to exchange information about the cards they possess and suggest establishing an alliance as well. However, he was ignored since Skeleton is busy apologizing to Bubble for forcing her to swim, almost accidentally drowning her because he didn't know she couldn't swim. To show sincerity in his apology, he offered to teach her to swim later, while Guling still tries to get their attention. Soon after, they noticed Guling's presence, so Skeleton asked who he was, to which he reintroduced himself and told them his intention. Now that Skeleton knew what he wanted, he suggested discussing the matter in a private place, and that's what they did. But before that, he helped Bubble stand up, as she was still a bit upset about what happened, ignoring Guling's presence again. They then arrived at Guling's place, where Jian Liwei is enjoying her time reading books, while Skeleton and Bubble are impressed with her beauty. She then condescendingly asks if she is in the presence of the strong pet that caused a lot of confusion during the preliminaries, which Skeleton was foolish enough to take as a compliment, so he reacts humbly. At the same time, both remind him that it wasn't a compliment. After introducing themselves, Guling explained why he wanted to form an alliance with them. Guling stated that everyone is seeking to win, and the main thing they need to accomplish is to gain the maximum hunting points in 10 rounds since abilities cannot be reused 2 nights in a row. The maximum points a single player can obtain in 10 rounds are 14, considering each death is successful. Therefore, they are hoping to form an alliance with Bubble and Skeleton so that they can share information and cooperate with Guling to earn more points. Skeleton is confused by Guling's suggestions, as he was asking for an alliance but ended up being just to assist Guling. Therefore, Guling draws his sword to explain, and because of this, he is almost invincible. He adds that if he wins the main task, he can share an appropriate amount of information with them. If possible, he also wants to recruit Bubble into his union. Meanwhile, Bubble is confused about the broken sword in front of her, so she asks what she can do. Skeleton explains that the reward for the 3rd main task is the magical artifact Genuine Sword, one of the enchantments of which must quadruple its own properties. The Shenwen Society really brought this divine tool for Guling. In other words, Guling can always be in double werewolf mode. Even if he chooses the Prophet card, he can still easily kill common werewolves. Saying this, Skeleton realizes they still see him as a pet, so he asks Bubble if she could bring this pet to join their union. They would be happy to collect him, which annoys Bubble, but she doesn't respond and lets them speak first. They add that they also have another artifact from the main tasks as members of the largest trading union in Azure. This evaluation is just a process for them to pass. Therefore, they try to convince Bubble to join Xinyuan, stating that they can ensure they will treat her well, as he is the first successor of Xinyuan. A few moments later, the meeting ends, and Bubble and Skeleton are now outside. Bubble realizes that Skeleton is thoughtful and asks what's going on, to which he responds that, as expected, There is a big difference between them and the large union. Therefore, he realized that he was too naive before, thinking he could win alone. After joining Xinyuan, they can easily make money and reputation. Speaking all this nonsense earned him a scolding from Bubble, who asked what he was talking about and why they had to join Guling's union. Aren't they happy with what they have now? They just got a clue, and if they can't get it, they'll work hard in a different direction. Besides, they treated him like an object and wanted to store him or something, which she didn't like to hear. During this time, she was really happy. Honestly, her health is not good, so she can't drink milk tea or eat much. In Azuri, she ate a lot, explored a lot, and even saw the sea today. It's the first time she sees it. No matter how big the union is, it doesn't matter to her because what's important is who you experience the task with. So, she asks to work together and calls Skeleton Prince Skeleton. Hearing all this from Bubble, he now knows it's her first time seeing the sea. So it's no wonder she didn't know how to swim, which made her irritated that he brought it up again. But their sweet conversation was interrupted by someone saying that the Miss has something to say to them. In a hurry, the Miss approached Bubble and asked if Skeleton's pet was for sale. If so, she could pay in cash. Hearing the audacity of this, Bubble asks loudly if she is crazy, not believing she found people who want to collect her pet while the other wants to buy him on the same day. So, Bubble challenges her, putting a price of 100 million won on Skeleton and daring her to buy him, but to Bubble's surprise, she agrees. However, Bubble doesn't plan to sell Skeleton to anyone, so she just walks away and ignores them, while the Miss still thinks she can buy whatever she wants. In a scene change, Bubble is having a rage attack about what happened earlier, while Skeleton has the brilliant idea of letting Bubble sell him since his level is much higher than the Miss. After being sold to her, he can sneakily come back, and then Bubble can sell him to her again, which irritated Bubble to hear such a plan. Meanwhile, Big Bear returns and tells them that something is wrong because the front row is filled with members of large unions who are looking to outperform the players behind them, while those players who don't belong to large unions basically bought their badges at high prices to level up so they wouldn't cooperate with them, no matter what. After delivering the bad news to them, he asks Skeleton what happened on their side, to which Skeleton explains everything that happened, shocking Big Bear that someone was willing to buy a pet for 100 million. Then he asks if the woman wants a bear too, and that he can also turn into a snake, offering it as a package. However, he soon realizes it was a mistake, so he changes the subject. Shortly after, Yuko brought 2 assistants with her. Quanta approached Skeleton directly and sniffed him. Confused, Skeleton asked what it was for, to which Quanta blushed and replied that there was a smell of his mother on him, leaving Skeleton puzzled, insinuating that Skeleton did something with Quanta's mother. Before he could ask, Yuko explained to Skeleton that Quanta was raised by wild monsters, so it probably means there's a smell of wild monsters coming from his body, which he confirmed with a nod. After that, they introduced themselves, but before they could talk more, Yiwu asked everyone to gather in the square as he had something to say. Intrigued by what was happening, they gathered to see what he had to say. Now that everyone was gathered in one place, Yiwu declared that he thought about it carefully, and as this game requires everyone to be open and honest, if everyone shared their badge numbers with each other and stopped attacking each other, this would ensure that everyone would have 10 points. In this way, everyone would be in first place. As an example, he already returned the badge number to the Tiger Lady and hopes that everyone joins his camp because he has a dream. He wants everyone to hold hands and be in first place. Then he asks his brother to join him and adds that if they don't exchange their badge numbers, it will be difficult for them to surpass the score of the Tiger Lady. Meanwhile, Guling is on the side and tired of seeing Yiwu deceive the players again. At the same time, Skeleton and Bubble decide to return to their place, while Bubble thinks that what Yiwu is saying makes some sense. However, Skeleton disagrees and explains that she is mistaken because Yiwu is just trying to deceive people. Why would someone with 2 cards that successfully hunted on the first night bother to exchange cards? Furthermore, if a large guild wins and receives clues for the main mission, they can use the clues to prepare in advance, trade for money and time, and pay more attention. They will be on a completely different level compared to normal players. Yiwu knows this better than anyone, but if he gives 10 points to all players, it will be much harder for them to hunt. There will be 5 opportunities to hunt, meaning they must accurately determine where their badge number is, or they will lose. Yiwu is treating this competition like a chess game. He's not thinking about winning, but rather how he can make the game more chaotic. For large guilds, a magical pet is just a toy to collect and play with. But one of Skeleton's favorite books says that weakness and ignorance are not obstacles to survival. Arrogance is. They dare to underestimate him as a small pet, so he will turn the chessboard for them. Later, Bubble is using her card ability as a prophet to look at the opponent's information. Now they know the badge numbers of Guling and Jianlu. Next, they need to confirm the players behind those badge numbers tomorrow, and since they chose the prophet tonight, they will have to stay closed and together. Skeleton then asks Big Bear to help him decide which princess dress is prettier, to which Big Bear, with a serious expression, asks Skeleton what he's doing but still gives a suggestion. After that, they decide to play and enjoy their time together. The next day, Big Bear's daughter-in-law is shocked to see what happened to him, to which he explains that he was playing cards with them the night before and didn't win any rounds. Soon after, Yuko informs them excitedly that she got Guling's badge number. She obtained this badge number yesterday as she chose the werewolf card and went to kill the player with the badge number 1900, the grasshopper player. In his hands, he really had been assigned a card with the number 1, but to their surprise, Guling was behind her, thanking her for helping him find it. He adds that yesterday he chose the prophecy card and was surprised to coincidentally find where the number 8, the number of his card, was located. With this, he suggests that they set a price. However, unexpectedly, Yuko didn't care about what he just said, telling him to buzz off while asking who raised him to be so spoiled. And, as expected, Guling was confused as to why she was hostile to him. Therefore, she clarifies what she feels about him meddling in other people's affairs without notice, acting spoiled because he is part of an influential union. But unfortunately, she doesn't care about any of that, so even if she wants to throw his badge number away, she won't give it to him. While others felt satisfaction seeing Guling also being scolded like this, Guling felt disrespected, so he decided he would have to get his badge number on his own. But before he could walk away, Yuko stopped him because, now that she's done yelling, they still need to do business. She tells him that she can give him his badge number as long as a few conditions are met. First, he must obtain the badge numbers of Bubble and herself for them. Second, after the preliminaries, they want to join Shen Yuan as external elders. With just these conditions, he agrees and therefore receives his badge number. Since she planned to negotiate from the beginning, he asks her why she felt the need to yell at him in the beginning, as she had never been yelled at like that before, to which she tells him to shut up because she just wanted to do that. Meanwhile, the commentators are confused by the fight, as they can't believe they gave Guling's badge number to him so easily. Now, Guling, who possesses the Xin Yuan sword, will have an unlimited advantage over the other players. The commentators doubt if they are really against Guling. A few moments later, Skeleton and his group are planning their next move. Skeleton suggests that they first leak the information that Guling got his badge number to all the other players. Then, Xiao Bao will go find the person who saw the badge number that Guling has in his hands and ask if he would like to form an alliance. He will meet with Cece and Sane to exchange information. Everyone will move independently, and with this plan, everyone agrees. Now, the commentator makes an assumption about what they are planning to do, as Skeleton and his companions cannot face players like Guling, who possesses the Shenyuan sword, and Zhang Hu, who possesses another divine artifact, alone. During this time, they will need to ally with other players. However, players will only agree to ally when Guling's points are significantly ahead, because humans will only ally closely with each other when facing a greater threat. In Azure, there are NPCs with high intelligence who also participate in the competition. However, this particular NPC must have a super high intelligence level, seeing how quickly he responded to take advantage of a badge number right after obtaining it. Due to Yuko yelling at Guling, her popularity has exponentially increased on the off-site popularity chart, and she is currently in first place. Normally, high-intelligence NPCs only appear once every few years, but this year, there are 3 of them in the top 10. Additionally, there is also a shameless pet this year. With this unfolding before their eyes, they eagerly await the competition and wonder who will be the ultimate winner. Meanwhile, Inside room number 7, the girl from before is more than happy that Skeleton finally decided to look for her on his own and be her skeleton. She promises him that she can give him many things and treat him better than his current owner. Even though Skeleton can't handle her desire, he tries to clarify that he and Bubble are not in a master-pet relationship, but are best friends who have been through a lot together. With this, she claims to understand, but under these circumstances, she just needs to add more money, which leaves Skeleton agitated as she didn't understand anything. He then tells her the reason for the visit, convincing her that if they form an alliance this time, there will still be many intelligent pets like him. Upon hearing this, she snaps back to reality, now more excited than ever, and quickly accepts his offer. She claims that he can even use all her subordinates. Skeleton is thrilled that he can now add money to his bank without losing dignity. The next day, Kitty is comfortably lying in Skeleton's lap, while Skeleton is jotting down notes about the events that occurred to aid in devising a plan. Big Bear then asks why he only brought one woman and a cat. With this question, Skeleton realizes that Bubble is quite furious, so he tries to defuse the situation by explaining what happened and that Kitty, whom he is petting comfortably, he found while looking for an alliance, but in reality, he found Yiwu and managed to tell him that they have to unite. However, in his plan, he also needs something else, which is the cat's help for spying. However, Skeleton just wants to pet the cat, so he simply lets her stay with him. Now in the present, Skeleton realizes that Kitty is slowly adapting to her role. Shortly after, Yuko returns to show Skeleton the list of people aligned with them, but he is unsure if it is enough for now. Meanwhile, Kitty asks why he stopped petting her. Upon saying these words, she quickly realizes that she has become submissive, and blames Azure's sensory device for being so realistic that she has become like a cat. She decides it's better to wake up but changes her mind as Skeleton continues to pet her with his highly skilled hand techniques. She convinces herself that she's not leaving the game because she likes it, but because quitting the event would mean giving up, and it took a lot of effort to get this far, so she'll just endure it and let Skeleton pet her. At the same time, Quanta returns and sees what Skeleton and Kitty are doing, but before he can say anything, Skeleton asks if he contacted Sane's side, to which he responds yes and therefore asks for a reward, wondering if Skeleton can pet him too. And as it was a request from Mrs. Subordinate, Skeleton did just that. With this, Quanta was delighted and even bragged to his companion that his mommy just praised him, while Skeleton clarified to him that he is not his mother. Now that everyone is gathered, he tells them that tonight they will all confirm the card choice and the situation of Guling and Jinluyua. Once they confirm they are in a good position to hunt, everyone will attack together. And when the opponents retaliate, it will be tricky for them to borrow defenses from their allies. Later, someone confirmed Guling's status, so they were alerted to attack him now. With this, he chose to become a werewolf and hunt the opponent Guling. In a scene change, Guling is sitting in his room menacingly, listening to footsteps near his place. He greets them confidently, saying that he knew this would happen the moment they gave him the badge number, but it would be foolish to refuse. He then sighs, stating that he should just wipe them all out already because if he doesn't kill them all at once, they will never know the difference in their abilities. He then asks Skeleton how many people are present and assures that he hasn't allied with anyone, to which Skeleton informs him that it's 19 against 1, and asserts that they will take him down that night with so many people. With Skeleton, Guling then made an assumption about what they were planning to do, so without hesitation, he went to attack Skeleton first, striking him from behind. However, fortunately, Quanta matched Guling's speed, so he successfully blocked the attack, sacrificing his hands. And as he has a fast regeneration ability, it was not a problem for him. Skeleton then assures Quanta that he could also keep up with Guling's speed. And, as expected, the Shenhuan sword is indeed powerful. However, there are a total of 5 seals, so it takes 5 turns before it can attack again. Therefore, Skeleton took a deep breath, covering himself in ice to reveal his true form. Now, he could be as fast as Guling, attacking him from all sides. But to his surprise, the Shenyuan sword automatically blocked all of his attacks. However, that's fine, as he originally intended to attack the sword, while Guling, unaware of what is happening, praises Skeleton for having such a skillful combat sense that even a veteran player cannot match. Skeleton then humiliates Guling, telling him that he just deceived him without him realizing it, explaining that the places he hits will freeze, so the frost managed to slow down the speed of the Shenyuan sword. Realizing what happened, Guling recognizes Skeleton as a threat and moves faster than the sword, successfully severing Skeleton's arm, injuring him. He then boasts about what he plans to do next. However, Skeleton reminds him that he can reinstall bones at will in his current form, mocking him for failing. Now that Guling realizes he wasn't taken seriously, he becomes agitated and more determined to shatter his bones until nothing is left. But Skeleton ignores him, as he is busy asking his teammates if they have finished preparing. Guling realizes that Skeleton was just a distraction, and notices the other players merging their auras into a box, which the commentator explains to be the Pandora's Box, a main artifact from the West. Although it can't compete with pure combat items like the Shenyuan sword, it has a very important ability called Sacrifice, allowing the voluntary exchange of attribute points and concentrating them on one player. However, there are many restrictions and side effects. Guling knows he's in trouble when he asks Cyan if he's out of his mind because after the sacrifice, he and these players will be destroyed in 10 hours and cannot continue participating in the competition. However, this doesn't worry Cyan at all, as he calculated his strength. His guild still has teammates and can continue to compete. And, as the conditions set by Skeleton are truly incredible, he couldn't ignore them, especially after failing the previous main mission. The Western forces haven't raised their heads until now, and what could be better than allowing him to personally kill and eliminate Guling? So he asks Guling if there's any more attractive plan than this. Now that Guling is convinced Cyan won't back down, he tries to discourage him by belittling his priest class, and how foolish it is to try to fight someone like him. Therefore, he decides to kill Cyan first. However, he was soon reminded that he is now fighting against two opponents as he is surprised by Skeleton from behind. Now that he's pinned to the ground, Guling decides to go all out and breaks the hammer Skeleton made, attacking him immediately. Fortunately, Cyan blocked him, while the other players were impressed with the power of these two, now exceeding their level by far. The commentator is more than ecstatic witnessing the confrontation of the two artifacts, even though they are wielded by two young players. The last time it was so exciting also occurred during a national war. However, even though Cyan is a priest, he was originally trained to be a combat commander of a Yunyun. At the same time, Cyan decided to transform his crossed shield into a sword and use Guling's Eastern Green Lotus sword art, completely surprising him. He even boasts that it's not strange for a priest to know a bit of swordsmanship, while the spectators are impressed, as expected from a brilliant successor. Azure's skill training is synchronized with their nerves. Only the simplest movements and skills can be used when connected to the nerves. Synchronization requires a lot of practice. Their methods here are almost at the level of professional PvP players, but unfortunately, Guling's talent is definitely greater than Cyan's. Now Cyan's sword flies out of his hand, so Guling is about to deliver the fatal blow. However, Skeleton was just waiting for him to lower his guard. Unexpectedly, Guling was doing the same. Now, he successfully pierces the bones directly, but unfortunately for Guling, Skeleton has some tricks up his sleeve. Therefore, Skeleton manages to land an attack using his severed arm, and as he said before, the places he hits freeze. Now that Guling is slowed down, Big Bear and Yiwu manage to entangle Guling's movement. With that, Guling soon realizes that all the previous delays were paving the way for these two seemingly ridiculous attacks, just to freeze and control him for this moment. Without further delay, Cyan delivers the final blow, completing his revenge. The commentator states that the Xin Yuan sword will stop working for 3 days if it's out of the sheath without seeing blood. If attacked multiple times in one night, Guling will be eliminated. Meanwhile, on Kunlun Mountain, inside the Shen Yuan headquarters, the elders witnessed everything that happened during the trial. The battle NPC was amazed at how their disciple was eliminated. On the other hand, the Holy Infant player was agitated, ordering them to find out the origins of this mysterious skeleton since she was still in denial about what happened. Meanwhile, the others are now contemplating reconsidering Guling's position as the first designated successor, and as he was careless, he will certainly be a laughingstock for those in the West. At the same time, the other players with whom the main character was before transmigrating are now watching the events live, thinking that Skeleton's personality is exactly like the leader of their society, as both are tricksters. Meanwhile, the squirrel guy was shocked to see a familiar face. Back at the location where Skeleton is, they have finally retrieved Guling's number plate. With this, the commentator announces the list of players who have been eliminated so far, one of them being Guling. However, before leaving, he invites Skeleton to join his union and assures that he is not being petty by targeting a single person just because of elimination. He is doing this because he hopes they can enjoy and master the game better. With this interaction, Skeleton is convinced that Guling truly deserves to be the first designated player of a major union, still so handsome even after being eliminated. Before he could think more about Guling's proposal to join his union, Cece suddenly hugs him, excited to see Skeleton's true form, and asks him to do it again. While Skeleton struggles to get away from her, her passion was too strong for him, so he was about to lose control. Fortunately, Bubble appears at the last moment, allowing Skeleton to distance himself from her. After that, Cyan approaches Skeleton to thank him for the opportunity he gave, and with Guling eliminated, the entire Western Union can breathe a sigh of relief. Still, Cyan knows he shouldn't let this opportunity pass and also tries to recruit Skeleton, asking him to join his union. As Cyan is a man of culture, he tries to convince Skeleton by telling him the most crucial things they have: incredibly beautiful angel sisters and the secret recipe for milk tea made by their professional chefs. This sparked the imagination of Bubble and Skeleton, but he knew he shouldn't get carried away and said it didn't matter now. After yesterday's great battle, everyone should just rest for the day. He suggests they not worry about the competition during the day because he just wants them to have fun together. But before they could start, Skeleton asks Cyan if he has pictures of those angel sisters. Now, due to the effects of the Pandora's box, these people are very weakened, to the point of dying. At the same time, everyone is drinking, having fun, and even resting. With this, Yiwu, who was on top of a tree, says they look so lively that they even seem like friends. He adds that it's impossible for someone like him to have friends. However, suddenly, he feels a strong claw on his head, and someone tells him to stop being grumpy. It was our protagonist, who invites him to have fun with them. However, from the bottle, Yiwu gets very angry and tells him to wait and see. At the same time, as always, Bubble is enjoying a drink. Shortly after, suddenly, Dom appears trying to be kind. However, she gets angry asking where Setsi is. He replies that he left her with Yuko. Sadists like her are the best at taking care of people like that, according to him. However, Yuko hears what he said, gets very angry with him, and chases after him asking who he's calling a super sadist. Then, suddenly, Dom hits something very soft and falls backward, sitting down. Soon after, he sees that it's Aiwei, and then gets worried because he eliminated his ally. Therefore, he thought she was seeking revenge. So right after that, she says it's good that both of them are there, seeing how they act. She would like to ask something. She asks if they transmigrated or are naturally intelligent creatures. Changing the scene to a private place, Dong is asking her how she knows that. If she talks about it while they are being broadcast live, everyone will know that it's possible to transmigrate in Azure. She then responds by asking if he's never tried. There have been other transmigrators, and in her experience, any attempt to contact the outside world will be blocked. At that moment, Dong remembers that in the past, he asked Bubble to send a message to some people. However, when he sent it, only asterisks and distorted text appeared. He then immediately says that it's true. He tried a lot at that time, and when he tried to explain it to Bubble, they silenced him. Therefore, now he opposes the idea that the transmission is focused on him. Also, he asks what she meant by what she just said. Is she a native of this world, or did she also migrate? She then explains that since all of them are NPCs here, they can discuss this freely. It seems that Yuko is, like her, an intelligent being originating from Azure. He then asks Yuko, from her point of view, what kind of existence players are. Yuko responds that it is written in the books that 40 years ago, players from another world began to enter the world of Azure. They are intelligent creatures like them, and to distinguish them, they call them players from another world. Players from another world exist in two states, connected and disconnected. When disconnected, they fall into a petrified sleep. In this state, they cannot be attacked, and they do not die. Right after, Yuko and she talk about their findings. At first, she was like most Azure NPCs and never felt that the world was different. She received players who completed their quests in the Fairy Mountain, which was her job. There were 2 non-combatant players on the mountain. One was a merchant, and the other an alchemist. Both used to come and talk to her, so little by little she became aware. One day they disconnected for a long time and didn't reconnect. This was normal for players, and she knew someone would come to pick them up. She didn't know why, but at that moment, something awoke inside her. Later, she learned that this emotion is called loss, until one day she saw one of them connected again. So, she went to him and asked why he reconnected and what happened to his friend, because he wasn't connected. At that moment, he, unable to hold back his tears, said that his friend had died. Yuko didn't understand anything and asked if he wouldn't revive if he died. Still crying, the man shouted that he was talking to an NPC, exclaiming that his friend was dead in real life and would never connect again. This meant he would never come back, and he would never hear his voice again, nor could he touch him. He wouldn't revive. It was at that moment that Yuko understood that their worlds were different. In Azure there is no true death, she thought deeply, and suddenly she understood. It was at that moment that a tear began to flow, and the man talking to her was surprised. That's how she experienced sadness for the first time. At that moment, Dong said that he had never imagined that. He always speculated about Azure's artificial superintendents and how Azure NPCs were so realistic. Some even thought they were played by other humans. So, according to her, it definitely had artificial intelligence from the beginning, but it didn't awaken until then. At that moment, Ayui asserts that she also knows that she can't discuss this topic with other players because every attempt is blocked. However, even so, they learned a little about the player's world through their conversations about how people's lives are perishable. People are born, grow, age, and in this world, there is no magic or level system. Their professions are not determined by a higher power. Some people get to do what they like, while others have to do things they don't like to survive. So, they move forward, life creates new life, and their HP bar is not visible on the day they die. In the end, they disappear. Their lives end. At that moment, Dong asks what she wants because she has not yet said her reasons for approaching him. She then says that if someone can transmigrate, it means that both worlds are connected. Therefore, she says she wanted to go to his real world. At that exact moment, Dong was shocked, speechless. Right after, Ayue says that there are still 3 things they have to tell him. First, they know why his world has levels and missions in many illogical places for players. Only a few super intelligent NPCs in Azure can think like her. Awakening is very difficult, and to achieve it, curiosity is needed. For some creatures, whenever you illustrate enough, their intelligence will be stimulated, and they will want to explore and discover why death exists in your world and why they don't know about levels or can't change professions, just like in the game. Because the world works that way. Who created this world? Furthermore, some of your NPCs have reached a consensus with the current most powerful NPCs in Azure, and that is also the reason why she is cooperating with the Dream. She told Dom that his performance exceeded her expectations, so she would like him to join them. According to her hypothesis, if they succeed in this, if they can bring their skills to Earth, like reviving or manipulating elements, they could be the new gods of Earth. At that moment, Dom asks her to stop because it's too much information to process. Then right after, Yuko gets up very excited, asking if it's really another world, and asks Dom if they can transmigrate. She also asks if there is a big difference between their world and theirs. Therefore, Ayue tells Yuko not to worry, that both are intelligent NPCs native to Azure. If she is interested, she can come with her to the Fairy Mountain after the competition. Many of them then, Ayue and also 3 NPCs residing there, were transmigrated, and through them, they learned so much about Earth. Anyway, as far as she knows, Dom was the first to transmigrate as a monster, so she hopes Dom will come with them. However, at this moment, he is very weak. His strength depends on his transfer, which is not easy to achieve. Transfers with 5 or more are basically expert level. Each person requires different materials and combinations to transfer. However, it seems he was careful in his first transfer. He can not only change shape but also add invisibility, enchantments, and additional combat elements. So, he must have been an experienced player before transmigrating. She then tells him not to misunderstand because she doesn't despise people like bullying does. Currently, he lacks much power to be able to return to his world. She adds that Guri fell, and if he hadn't fallen, she wouldn't have to tell him the clues for this main mission. This time, they are really important. An important opportunity for them to reveal the truth behind Azure. Right after, she shows him a stone, asking if he knows what it is. Dom, very shocked, says it's an airstone from the Fairy Mountain, an artifact obtained after completing a main mission, and one of its functions is to rewrite and hide character attributes. She then says that altering levels after entering the competition is not a violation of the rules. Therefore, she introduces herself again. Ice and Way Santa from the Fairy Mountain, level 105th transfer. Then, right after, she leaves and suddenly turns back, saying that she ordered Quanto Illusion Lunar to accompany him. At that moment, Dom wonders if it was all part of her plan. The gap between them is very large. Then right after, he realizes that something is not right. She didn't calculate bullying's elimination due to the large amount of information he received. He ended up overlooking that, at least in this game, high levels don't give a good advantage when it comes to killing. He concludes that she wanted him to join her gang in advance so that she could easily get clues for the main mission. Anyway, whether he joins them or follows his own path to win and receive clues in this entrance exam, it's just the best choice. So it seems it will be level 100 with 5 transfers against level 61 with only 1. The second part of the game officially begins hours later in Bubble's cabin. The protagonist is relaxed and lazy, expressing his reluctance to do anything for the day. Bubble, finding this strange, inquires whether they won't be eliminating anyone and asks if something happened. In response, he says it's something he can't explain. You know, I would never hurt you. There are many things that are hard to understand. At this moment, Grandma chimes in with a smile, mentioning that they have been together for a long time, and she has noticed some things. There's only one truth. The first mission he gave her was a lie. Wondering if Bubble has discovered that he transmigrated into the game, he acknowledges her intelligence. Simultaneously, Bubble remarks that he mentioned they could resurrect her knight, but that was a lie, an impossible strategy, right? At this point, Dom acknowledges her incredible insight. Exactly then Aiwe appears, asking Dom if he has a moment. Shortly afterward, he informs Bubble that he will attend to the test matters. Bubble tells him to go, mentioning that she doesn't even understand the rules. As he leaves, Bubble remains relaxed, pondering which mission was real and which was a lie. Inside, Yuko asks the protagonist if they can talk about his world. He replies that it's challenging to explain clearly. My world is as real as yours. Like you, I considered everything I knew to be normal. Things flowed smoothly since my childhood, and thanks to my qualifications, I could easily enter one of the best universities, something akin to an academy. I never had grand aspirations. I wanted to play video games quietly, fall in love, and live at my own pace. After graduating, I became a public servant and rose to a position that didn't require much effort. And who would have thought I couldn't control my hand? And presto, I'm inside the video game. Yuko reassures him that the details align with what she knows. She still has some suspicions, but she can deal with them later. Changing the subject, she mentions that her assumption was not incorrect. She spoke with her allies, but none of them had his number, so it's likely in someone else's possession. The next step is to retrieve it. Now that they know what number they have, the good news is that Aiwe has not yet regained her ranking, so no matter how powerful she is, she can only kill one person. This means they have the advantage. They will have to negotiate with her. If they manage to collect all the clues from the main mission, in addition to their deal, their statuses will also be different. They shake hands and decide to work together. Shortly after, Aiwe asks him if he wants to share about his world with her. Transitioning to another scene, Bear and his sister are enjoying the sunset. Suddenly, someone with a jug requests everyone to gather in the square. Bear becomes angry, thinking it's Yiwu up to his usual antics. However, Yiwu behind him denies being responsible this time. Then, it is revealed to be the protagonist, who says that after careful consideration yesterday, he realized that what Yiwu said is crucial. Bear is left confused. Dom continues, saying that he currently holds 2 rankings and wishes to negotiate sincerely with these people. He admits to being selfish before, but now he is concerned that the exchange will be detrimental to all. He deeply regrets his past actions and tells everyone that Yiwu is the most visionary among them. At this moment, Yudis tells him to leave, saying he has nothing to do with it and that he didn't know anything. After this incident, they gathered in closed environments. The Great Bear was confused, wondering if he really wanted to exchange cards as Yiwu suggested, and why a player with many allies would need to trade cards. The system window indicates that the bear is a local tyrant, with an initial number of 69 and current cards being 69 and 439, with a total of 11 points. Dom told him that he has information and wants everyone to know. The system window shows that Dom's initial number is 9, and his current cards are 95, 567, and 621, with a total of 3 points. Dom hopes that everyone exchanges information freely to increase the average points. This way, they can try to get the Great God to change the objective. The guys started shouting in surprise, asking, "Which other god?" He replied that they know who Jiang Luyu is. She used the new Nua stone to hide her attributes, and she is actually level 5. The guys were very surprised by this news, and their faces turned purple with fear. Dom continued speaking, opening his hands, and exclaimed, "This is the situation. So how about we get the Pandora's box and continue soul-sucking?" Cyan said with a trembling voice, holding a cross in his hand. "Forget it. I can't do this anymore. The strength difference is too great. If they take the souls of all 30 werewolves, it will probably be more like suicide. We simply can't escape, so we will be destroyed very quickly." Dom got angry, slammed his hand on the table, and replied that they haven't necessarily lost. First, they need to exchange information, and if someone has Zhang Luyu's number, then they should step forward. However, there was silence among them. Dom crossed his arms and responded with a threatening look, saying that it seems like either people don't want to cooperate with them, or none of them has Zhang Luyu's number. Currently, the only player with 10 points is Honglian, so the strongest player just needs to find his number first, and then kill Honglian to steal his number. But now that he has made sure that at least some players have more than 10 points, there is only one way to win: get their own numbers and score more than 10 points. Then, just kill the player with the highest points and get the numbers of others to achieve a change in the ranking. Although the rule has changed a lot, the fundamental gameplay still depends on information. Knowing which numbers are in a player's hand and understanding the player's daily choices are the key to winning the game. The impact of combat power in the game will become less important as the number of hunters decreases, but the good news is that they have already taken care of Gulin. Although Zhang Luyue is a strong player, as long as they defend against her attack, taking the next step will be easier than it was with Gulin. They just don't know what Zhang Luyue's number is now, and that's what complicates everything. At this moment, Zhang Luyue was asking a girl if she understood everything earlier. Quen also found out through the alliance that she had her own number. The girl replied that she was a member of Miss Cece's guild and would never betray her. She turned to Guan and asked again, confused, who Miss Cece was. Guan replied that she was a rich girl who bought the guild. Many people from her guild came to her test because someone changed the conditions of the first round for money. She recalled a recent situation that happened in the forest. Hong turned to Cece and said, pointing his finger to the side, that there was a pet selling skins. He doesn't think they need to fight now, and they sell for 50 gold coins. At that moment, she was delighted and said that this is great. It's like receiving a gift. The most convenient way to resolve everything is through money. Guan thought. That's why 7 or 8 people from her guild were retested so quickly. Zhang Luyue asked Guan how much Miss Cece paid for the service. She can provide all the necessary resources. Guan should head to the Immortal Mountains later. The other girl started shouting, angered by Jiang Luyue thinking they were with Cece because of money, and asked if, in her opinion, she is some kind of corrupt person. But before she could finish speaking, Zhang Luyue interrupted her and said calmly that all these high-level weapons must be removed and sold at a good price. The girl bowed on the ground before Zhang Luyue and shouted that from now on, she is the most faithful disciple of the Immortal Mountain. She will fight wherever her guild goes. Zhang Luyu thought with a smile that corrupt people are very easy to force into betraying someone for a certain amount. It seems that most people on Earth are like that. This is a simple world, but at the same time so complex. Cece and Hong went to Dom's room, and she entered with a smile, saying she was late. She sat in the chair next to Dom, looked at his face, and said she had good and bad news for him. He asked her to tell everything at once, and she replied that recently in her guild, there was a player with the nickname Dusk Funeral. It seems she had Zhang Luyue's card, but it was left behind, and most likely, Zhang Luyu should have contacted her. And from what she now knows about the people on their side, they will betray him very easily if bribed with a larger amount. Hong shouted confidently at her that he would never betray Miss because thanks to her, he is here today. She looked at him with a smile and said, "Of course, except for him because he is not like that." He fell deeply in love with Miss, and Dom interrupted their conversation and started saying that not only did Zhang Luyue get his number, but now he is also forced to witness their public display of affection. Hong looked at him with a red face in embarrassment and shouted at him, asking what he is talking about now. Dom then asked why he was blushing now. At that moment, a girl knocked on their door and entered, apologizing for her interference and asking if they would like to exchange numbers there. Dom thought for a moment, and she continued talking. She has the number plate 9, which she knew belonged to one of them there. She asked if they wanted to bargain with her. Dom was glad that everything worked as he expected. After these thoughts, he asked her which number she wanted in exchange. At this moment, the bear remembered this girl and whispered in Dom's ear, reminding him that she was the one who once said she would never work with them. She was embarrassed and replied that no, not anymore because she is still not dead. After that, she put her hand in front of his face and shouted that this trick is very clever because even though the points are not so important, the ranking they receive affects the rewards and resources they get in the end. Nowadays, many people are exchanging numbers with each other, and if she doesn't do it, she will fall behind. She has the number card 9 and will agree to exchange this card for the number 27, only for this card. But if they don't have this card, she will give this card to someone else. Dom smiled at her and replied joyfully, so they agreed. He handed her the number 27 card and took the number 9 card, saying that this number belongs to her. She thought about it and with fear asked how he got his number. It couldn't be a coincidence, and he told her that it had to do with the fact that they had entered into an alliance at the beginning with Guan. They found out that she had the number 27 card in her hands, and later discovered that she had her master's card. But now Guan and the others, as well as Zhang Luyu's alliance, were exposed. If he exchanged cards directly, it would arouse suspicions from Zhang Luyu. So he went along with Yiwu's idea of card exchange and proposed promoting the idea. Dom said they have no reason to refuse to have another player with 10 points. Suddenly Dom asked, "What's Quanta's problem? Why every time he sees Dom he goes and crouches in the corner?" Guan replied that initially they were assigned to spy on Dom's team, but Dom has the same scent as his family, so now he says he betrayed his mother and is a bit afraid to see him. Dom shouted angrily, showing his fist, saying that he is not his mother. Quanta continued to say with tears in his eyes that he is such a useless werewolf, apologizing to his boss and his mother. Dom approached him and asked what he was talking about. Quanta's eyes filled with even more tears, and he repeated his apologies again. Dom stroked his head and said that everything was fine. It was just a game. Nothing bad happened. Dom said he heard that he was raised by wild monsters. Dom also mentioned that he has a camp on the slope of the 10,000 miles. He invited Quanta to visit him there after the game. Dom petted his head, which Quanta liked a lot. Dom looked at him for a moment and thought that he now is more like a child who is just learning. Zhang Luyu's emotions are not very obvious yet, but it seems to him that the new generations of NPCs are more like children and humans, so they will exchange numbers first. Dom, as he was leaving, turned around and said that if there's a chance, he will come back later to play with them. He waved to them and left the room. The girl wondered what that was. Then, with a questioning expression on her face, she said she just came to exchange numbers. She wondered why she needed to hear his story with the NPC. He approached her, cleared his throat, and said they should get back to business, starting a mass exchange. He was able to get her card and then sent a message to her to come and exchange a card with him. He created several players with high scores to distract Zhang Luyue's attention. He kills 3 birds with 1 stone. He really is a genius, the girl responded, tired. She finally finished exchanging the numbers. She won't listen to him brag. He showed her his number and said they would have 3 more chances to hunt. It's just Zhang Luyue being shaken by attacks and taking down other players from her normal state, one at a time. No matter how strong she is, she must follow the rules of the game, and as long as they don't face her directly, this will be done. The next step is to guess Zhang Luyue's plan for tonight and avoid the moments when she attacks. His name is Jin Gui Wang. He is a formation mage who has participated in only a few competitions. He is now exchanging his number card because the 9th Great God's pet proposed a mutual card exchange. He easily got her card. He thought about the fact that he used the Guardian card and still hasn't found allies. Today, he will have to use the Werewolf card to avoid losing points. These 10 points are his ticket to the rankings until he reaches the top 10. He needs to be on guard. Someone not far from him asked Bubble to look at the fact that there was a boy there. Jin was very surprised by this and shouted in shock, "Who are you?" Jin asked them not to approach him. It was Dom and Bubble, who were not far from him with a smile on their faces. He pointed a sharp object in their direction. Dom looked from inside the house and wondered if he is a ceiling mage. Now that he guessed that Jin is playing alone, Dom with a smile says that he is lucky not to have been eliminated yet. Jin began to shout, pointing at the wall, telling them to look there because they are surrounded by his seals. He has already pushed one away with werewolf powers, so they better get out of there. Dom picked up a green and red book and said, "So, this is the same book with which he applied these seals." The guy was very surprised by this, and Dom remained calm. Then he turned sharply and shouted in fear, asking how he got there. Bubble replied that the slime helped with that. This is her pet slime. It can split. They used the slime's ability to disarm all of his traps. Jin leaned against the wall and said with a sad expression on his face that it would be better if he hadn't found his card. Then he wouldn't be so upset when this card was taken from him. Dom sat closer to him to calm him down and said, "Wow," praising him for managing to find his own number. Jin just had bad luck to encounter him, and Dom understands that it's not easy. Jin then started to cry and asked him if this meant he would let him go. Dom replied that he didn't think so. After hearing this, Jin, with disappointment, told him that Dom should take the number and go his way because he wanted to cry there alone. With a cheerful expression on her face, Bubble was stretching at the window of her room, taking the opportunity to look at the sunrise, and said that the beach has been very deserted in recent days. Dom replied to her that in recent days, players are making more effort to gain points than to form alliances. Fewer and fewer people want to exchange information, so it's harder to draw conclusions. Dom asked her if she's tired because it's very tiring to be constantly on alert. Although the day and night pass quickly here, not to prolong it too much, but still 7 or 8 hours have already passed in their world. She replied with a smile on her face that she wasn't tired. It's only been half a day, and she's already used to it. After that, still looking at him curiously, thinking he was somehow melancholic after returning from Zhang Luyue. Dom, in response, told her not to think about it. He also told her that all the big guilds have gone crazy, inviting the first players they find. They use artifacts to participate in the event for players below level 40. This is unfair to honest people. Meanwhile, Jiang is behind Dom, but he doesn't notice, even with Bubble trying to warn him. Dom continues talking, saying that when he succeeds, he will complete the main mission and get unparalleled artifacts. He even came up with a name, and it will be the Sword of Xuanyuan Nua, specially named to counter the Xuanyuan sword and the Nua stone. He looked at Bubble, questioning why she was moving so much. Suddenly, Jiang, behind him, said that the title of the sword was too long and suggested that Nua should be in front as it would sound better. He turned to her with an incredibly frightened expression on his face and was stunned. Sweat started to drip from his face out of fear and embarrassment. Dom spoke to her, asking why she walks without making any sound. He tries to cover up, saying that they were talking about a book with that name. "What is this beautiful lady doing here?" Dom said. She replied that she was helping them win the event. Based on all the information obtained through the Alliance, she located all the players with 11 points. She and Guan eliminated all of them, and the only one with 13 points so far is Dom. and no one has been able to defeat him yet. So, Jiang sits down and says that the game's outcome is clear, because it's impossible for anyone to surpass him at this point. Jiang questions him if he still doesn't trust her, even though she has revealed all the cards to him. She says he has a goal, and that is to reach the other world, and that is also her goal. So, she wants to speed up his victory and will help him with that. She will take care of the next people who attack him so that he can relax. Dom was dumbfounded by this. At that time, he knew many ways to win. There were even options for losses. It's a pity because he guessed the beginning correctly, but couldn't predict the ending. Under Jiang Luyui's guidance, he easily secured the first place after the final count, but he won in a ridiculous manner. Dom always thought that he wanted to achieve his third transfer, given that Jiang was already in her fifth transfer. He even wondered what it's like to be victorious. However, Jiang easily defeated Dom on the first floor. But when Jiang told him not to try too hard and to let her handle the problems that will come in the future, he became thoughtful, reflecting that this feeling is very comfortable. Now he feels so happy, tears appeared on his face, and Bubble at that moment was holding the victory medal. The two stood on the stage, Bubble slightly upset and Dom very happy. Mang wondered why Dom was crying. The bear replied that maybe they were tears of joy because the test wasn't easy. The host spoke, and now Elder Kai will present the awards to the winners. They will also have an important announcement that will be broadcast from here to all game servers, so they should warmly welcome Kai to the stage. Elder Kai took the stage, his body trembling as he moved. It took him a long time to get on stage, and everyone watched what was happening with boredom. The bear wondered if Mang had fallen asleep. She said no, he should look at that. His legs seemed to be moving. A man helped Elder Kai off the stage, and Bubble and Dom, seeing that, were left speechless. After that, he cleared his throat and said into the microphone that, instead of Elder Kai, he would be extremely honored to present the well-deserved awards to the winners. Firstly, the maximum level will be increased. Previously, it was possible to level up only to level 100. But now they have expanded their capabilities to 120 and removed the limit of 5 transfers. Players will now be able to achieve Transfer 6 and level 120. They should combine different fighting styles and skills to make the game even more interesting. All the people around looked at the stage in perplexity and wondered about Transfer level 6. No one expected this, and everyone started discussing who will be the first to reach Transfer level 6. They also wondered if they would add new dungeons, as that would be simply wonderful. The man continued to say, approaching Bubble, that he would now give the main mission clue to the winner. She can choose to keep the clue to herself or share it publicly, as some previous winners have done. Bubble and Dom opened the clue and wondered what it was. Dom thought for a moment, then turned to the man with some request, and he spoke. And so the winner made a decision. There are 2 clues, and Bubble decided to share one of these clues with them, and the second will be kept secret. The first clue is a poem that he hopes one of them can solve. A channel will be established, and the rules of the world will be thus rewritten when souls from the other side climb the ethereal nebulous mountains. The boundary between life and death will arise. I hope we can join hands to rejoice and sing in this new era that will come. People started discussing this among themselves. What does it mean? A new dungeon, maybe? New locations? The boundary between life and death has lost its limits. How is that so? These were the questions of those present in the audience. Dom was pensive because the second clue had the same symbol he has on his forehead. Dom wonders what this has to do with him. The news of Bubble's victory spread quickly throughout the game, and the main mission clue was known to everyone in the Azure game. In the broadcast comments, people began to comment that this time the clue is in the form of a riddle, which is really difficult. They also wondered what life and death have lost their limits meant. Another user responded to this message saying that, actually, Bubble's pet is lucky because he was really carried by an NPC. Another user asked if her pet is a skeleton or a vampire. This user also asked if this pet could be a reward for some mission because it is much smarter and more inventive than other NPCs, and says that in a few days, he will go to the skeleton camp and try to get his own pet like that. Another user told him that he shouldn't even have hope. The average level of skeletons in the camp is almost 60. As soon as they see a player above their level, they quickly flee, but beginners rarely choose the area as their spawn point. Fortunately, these monsters cannot move. Everyone discussed this situation among themselves. Jiang appeared among the crowd with Quanta and Guan by her side. Meanwhile, a huge bird flew up to her and landed in front of her. She climbed onto the bird and flew away. People around saw this and said it was simply incredible. Suddenly, many journalists ran up to the bear and started shouting at him, saying they would like to talk to him and learn about his experience in the game. One of the reporters asked the bear if he's not afraid of revenge after he and Miss Bubbles' pet stole from most participants. Another asked if Miss Bubbles' pet did not leave with them. The bear was annoyed by the journalist's actions. He held his wife in his arms and asked the reporters why they were surrounding him. His wife is afraid of crowds. He said that Bubble was nearby, and if they want to know something, they should ask her themselves. After that, the bear logged out of the game. Suddenly, one of the reporters spotted Bubble and announced to the others, saying they should interview her. He quickly ran up to her with a microphone to interview her, shouting for her, calling her. He touched her shoulder, already apologizing for the inconvenience. But when she turned around, he realized it was a slime. The slime's transformation ability allowed it to imitate another creature with its whole body, except the face. At that moment, Dom and Bubble were trying to escape unnoticed from this place. At the same time, someone in the crowd wondered, seeing a slime instead of Bubble herself, what that was, and if it was Bubble's other pet, the muscular slime. The reporters realized this was terrible because it meant that Bubble herself had already escaped from there. They should look for the rude and arrogant vampire in the cloak dome. Furious, Dom shouted at them, asking who they were calling rude and arrogant. Some people heard this and wondered where that voice was coming from. At that moment, Dom and Bubble continued trying to get out of the crowd unnoticed. Dom was apologizing to people to be able to pass, and Bubble told him that it was very crowded in this place, but they still managed to escape and sighed in relief. At this moment, some people appeared behind them and wondered if people were already picking skeletons as pets. Someone replied that, unfortunately, yes. But this skeleton is a completely common monster, unlike the skeleton from the broadcast that had ice powers. Dom turned to look at the crowd of people and thought it was good that they escaped this time. His human form would only cause more trouble. This skeleton appearance of his is not popular at all. The two walked into the forest thicket, and Dom said that for now it would be better for him to appear in the skeleton form, so that they would be less recognized. The vampire form would probably stand out everywhere they went, and the skeleton would not be so noticeable. In fact, he had no idea what was happening with the camp now, but he really wanted to find out. Dom told Bubble to log out and rest when they reached the camp. She agreed with him, but when they got there, a blonde knight in armor appeared in front of him with a broom in his hands. It was the warlord Shapo. Dom asked, "Where is the fat one and all the others?" The guy shouted back at him with joy and delight in his eyes. "Great Chief, you're finally back," said Shapo. He quickly fell to his feet and shouted that he had been waiting for him. Bubble covered her mouth with her hands in surprise, and Dom asked him why he called him Chief, what was happening there. The guy replied that after Dom defeated him, he realized that the camp where he and many other intelligent skeletons appeared could not be so common. Some time ago, we see the Fat One and Shapo talking. The Fat One told Shapo that he could go home because Dom had said to teach him a lesson, but they had been fighting for many days. However, at that moment, Shapo interrupted him with his palm and asked him to wait for a moment. The Fat One asked him again what he needed. He replied while still sitting on the grass that for a long time players dominated Azure, except for NPCs with high intelligence. This rebellion of their charges made him realize something, so Shapo says there is only one way to completely overcome the monsters, and that is to join forces with these monsters. Shapo said they really need an assistant, so they're killing 2 birds with 1 water tank. Shapo, already on his knees, said he believed that monsters must be very important for the main mission. So he asked to be part of his team. Back to the present, Shapo says that now he is on the team, and the Fat One is his commander. Shapo turned to Dom and, with a smile, told him that he was the chief of his boss, so he would call her the Big Boss. Dom, already impatient, told him indifferently to get straight to the point, asking where the Fat One and all the others are now, and why the camp is like this. He replied that if he had arrived a little earlier, then all this would not have happened. The camp would have been completely burned. They sat on the grass facing each other, and Chapo began to tell them that this happened when he was away, but he tried to hide the camp in every possible way. One day, in a forest full of boars, a guy whose body was trembling said they had finally completed the mission. Now they could move on to the higher-level monster zone. He was already fed up with the skeletons and said he never wanted to see them again. After those level 30 boars, they would finally move to another city. Someone behind those guys called them and asked for permission. The two guys turned around and saw that it was Shapo. Behind him, many skeleton monsters had gathered. He pointed his sword forward and confidently shouted to attack, after which he ran away and returned with the boars to make food. One of the guys held his head, fell to his knees, and shouted in anger, "These skeletons again!" He approached his brother named Ming Yu and asked if they can change the composition of their bodies when they reach the second transfer. Ming asked in bewilderment of his brother Qing Feng what he meant by those words. Feng replied with a reckless expression on his face that these skeletons are constantly causing trouble. "I just realized that the only way to overcome them is to become a skeleton," said Feng. "This means that from now on, they will no longer be human." Now, Feng suggests cultivating some materials so that they can transfer to the undead race as soon as possible. Chapo, who was still there, turned towards Feng and wondered what was wrong with this guy. After the novice players stopped coming to the skeleton camp, they no longer have the opportunity to evolve at their expense. They will have to resort to attacking high-level monsters, but these monsters give little experience. In this way, they will only be able to advance to a maximum of level 60. Moreover, the difference after the transfer is enormous, because when a player reaches level 50 and performs the transfer, they can easily defeat a level 60 skeleton. And if the player has a second level, then even numerical superiority is insignificant. No matter how high the monster's level in Azure, it is deprecated. It is simply impossible to take them to the main city to change class. It would be possible to find a player with taming skills like Bubble, but such naive ones are not easy to deceive. No one needs a common skeleton as a pet. Bubble told him, showing her fist, that if he repeats that again, then in that case, she would simply beat him up. He continued to speak. Then, while they were thinking about requalification, at the same time, they were strengthening the defense of the base. Then, two very strange things happened. First, the vampire camp next door was looted by a horde of beast tamers. It was completely ravaged. Later, he learned that it was because the big boss was so popular during the entrance exam. One of the players shouted for the bat to become a cute vampire prince, and many female players wanted to try to catch a bat and turn it into a vampire. Dom said with a smile that it seems he fooled them. "So, what's the second thing?" said Dom. Previously, the number of skeletons in their camp did not exceed 233, but when he went on an expedition to fight high-level monsters, a dozen or more skeletons that were killed and did not respawn, a new skeleton appeared in the camp. In total, there are 4 skeletons in this camp, with their own consciousness. But this little one, although this skeleton was only first level, unlike the rest of the programmed NPCs, who were just wandering, this little guy has been watching them for several days but doesn't get close to them. Chapo asked the fat one if maybe he should call him. The fat one told him he should forget it. Even the fastest skeletons couldn't catch him. The fat one then asks Chapo for the undead food he bought in the city. Chapo replied that he would do that now. The fat one took a plate of food that looked like a thigh and thought as he put the plate on the ground, "This is to attract the brat." The fat one left the plate not too far from the tree and ran to hide behind a bush, after which the little skeleton felt the plate with food and admired it with passion. He looked around and approached the plate. Then, he ate everything with the greatest happiness possible, but he noticed the fat one behind the bushes and quickly disappeared. The fat one realized that maybe it was simply impossible to get closer to that little monster. The monster suddenly appeared next to the fat one with a flower behind his back. The little monster looked at him with tender eyes and told him to pick the flower and asked if in return he would get more food. Earlier, in the skeleton camp, Chapo and the skeletons gathered in the same room and watched the game progress, and when Dom showed the number 1 card, Chapo shouted to him how great that was and that the big boss is just too handsome. At that moment, a skeleton pushed him aside, saying that he should get out of here because he was blocking everyone's screen. The little monster was sitting on the fat one's skull, and the fat one told him, pointing his finger at the screen, to look there. "Cole, this is our boss. He taught us how to hunt and read. You will meet him after the tournament," said the fat one. Cole asked the fat one if this was serious. The fat one replied that he is not just a skeleton, he is a different race, he has many secrets. Chapo, looking at that, wondered what they were even doing. One of the skeletons approached the guy, grabbed him by the shoulder, addressed him as Chapo, and asked him to tell more about the world of players. The guy began to narrate. After everything calmed down, we began to plan how to get back at the enemy camp. The most direct method was the one I and the captain had discussed before, which wasn't difficult for people to implement. Then something happened. It was the squirrel player who told the others. He said the information was verified. That pet was first a skeleton, and only then became a vampire. He recognized his owner, and he gathered them here to see the tactics of those skeletons. According to rumors, they made great progress. The rat spoke, saying that the monsters suddenly became self-aware. The information from bounty hunters also confirms that the skeletons are building something strange. The girl with pink hair, sitting next to them, told the others that before spreading the information, they need to allow the players to clear the camp. Only those sitting at this table know the origin of the vampire, and she hopes it stays that way, but the camp must be eliminated. The squirrel continued to say that everyone present is third-level players who will easily take over the camp now until the tournament ends. Even if the vampire wins, the camp would already be theirs. The squirrel thinks that if these skeletons are truly intelligent, then these monsters should respond with something valuable. So they shouldn't wait. This group of players approached the camp, and Chapo approached them and, with a smile, pointed his finger to the side, saying that 10 miles away, a monster had set up a camp right here, so they should leave. The girl asked again if he was the one who leaked the information, questioning why other players know about this camp. The squirrel said they shouldn't worry, he's only level 60, probably came here to gain experience. After that, the squirrel began to ask, with a smile, if the monsters here are higher or lower than 60 levels, and if his guild leveled up there. The guy replied that no, he's still not a member of any guild but plans to join one in the future. Chapo then says that the level of monsters in that camp is really high, and these monsters are very cunning creatures, so it's better for them to go back. The girl told him he's a gentleman, approached him, and said they knew about the danger. At that moment, members of their team appeared from all sides and grabbed him. The squirrel said with a smile that this guy is just a grain of sand, and they won't kill him because it would attract attention, so they would take him with them. The knight wondered if these people really came after the fat one, Cole, and the others. They hid their level from him, but no matter the level or rank, they are much stronger than him. Fat one, at that moment, saw these people approaching, along with Chapo, who couldn't get rid of his handcuffs. Chapo shouted for the fat one to run quickly, and everyone should get away from here. Fat one wondered if these players tied up the god killers. Fat one pondered that this was a big problem. Then he began to shout to the rest of the skeletons in the camp that everyone was in danger and needed to run as fast as possible. They needed to save themselves. The girl created a barrier around the camp and said they were a bit late, holding the Powerball in her hand. She said she would take care of them. One of the team members looked at Fat One approaching and thought this was an unusual skeleton. He himself thought it would be difficult to deal with. Fat One approached and asked why they were here. If they needed resources or money, they would give them. The girl said with a smile that this skeleton is really smart. After that, she invited him to become the pet, and she would treat him well. The squirrel replied that she shouldn't say such nonsense. They need to capture all these skeletons and put them behind bars before they attract too much attention. The squirrel turned to the player Aragon and said he had been fighting for a long time with a skeleton that hadn't even been transformed. Aragon angrily replied that he shouldn't say anything stupid, that he would soon end this. At this moment, Aragon thought he felt so ashamed. He must use all his strength to defeat this skeleton. Fat One continued to observe his opponent, looking at him with an ominous expression and confidence on his face, and Aragon realized that the expression of the skeleton had changed. He thinks that now the end has come for him. Suddenly, he was hit by something that approached quickly, and he wondered what it was. Aragon noticed that with this blow, his defenses were broken. Cole then climbed on Gordo's head and asked if they were bad people. In response, Gordo turned to him and said yes, but asked him to be more careful, and at that moment, everyone in the group looked at them suspiciously, wondering what it was. The girl with pink hair said excitedly that it's a black skeleton, it's a treasure. Black monsters are much stronger than ordinary ones. The best player in the West has a pet like this. It's a black dragon. At that moment, the squirrel shouted loudly with a smile that they don't need anyone anymore. If they capture him, they'll become rich. To avoid misunderstandings, Bindi and Aragon should attack them together. Cole suddenly jumped off Gordo's skull and attacked. Aragon saw this and, with a frightened expression on his face, shouted, "There." He tried to defend against this attack, thinking that this little one hasn't been transferred yet. He is very strong, and Aragon can't keep up. He is too fast. Aragon was thrown back by the impact. Cole, in front of the enemies, shouted to them saying that they are all bad people. Bindi ran behind Cole and created magical circles in his hands. He directed his powers towards Cole and he found himself inside a magic ball. But Cole easily dealt with this magic and escaped from there. Bindi was very surprised by this and wondered angrily if the prison hadn't stopped him. The squirrel, who continued to watch the battle from afar, thought that he is very different from all the others. He looked towards the camp and realized that everything around him was empty, which made him start shouting hastily. The squirrel told them to deal with him quickly, as he was delaying them. There are fewer and fewer skeletons as they fight. Gordo heard this and shouted to Cole that they discovered the plan, and he should follow him. Gordo opened a hatch that was on the ground under the grass, entered, and said, addressing Chapo, that he is a player, so he just needs to explain it to them. Cole landed on Gordo's head, mocked them, and disappeared underground together. The whole team of thieves approached this hatch, looked inside, and the girl with pink hair said that even their trail disappeared, and wondered if these were the underground labyrinths. The squirrel replied that they were not successful. They didn't even catch a small skeleton. What will happen to their reputation after this? He then turned to Chapo and asked if he was friends with these skeletons and where this labyrinth led. He replied that he wouldn't say, even if they killed him. He could revive and show all his strength. All team members started beating him and yelling at him that today he would simply die. The pain in Azure feels almost like real pain, regardless of the settings, so pleading for mercy was pointless. After a while, Chapo, leaning against a tree, began to tell Gordo that he needed to completely turn off his pain sensations, first the skeletons and then the players. Gordo said that Cole had observed that they had already gone far enough before leaving. Chapo, with a battered and bleeding face, said that he hadn't said anything to the thieves because he was a man of his word. Gordo touched his shoulder, apologized, and said that they simply couldn't stay there because it wasn't safe. They needed to build a camp, a new camp. Chapo finished telling his story about the previous events to Bubble and Dom. He said with a smile that that's how things happened. They moved from here, but not too far because they were afraid their boss Dom wouldn't find them. If they allowed, he would guide them. Dom replied that he could have just said that they moved and asked why he needed such a long story to explain that. Chapo grabbed his head and said embarrassedly, Okay, it's my fault. Just don't hit me again. Dom, touching Chapo's shoulder, said that he is grateful to him. He officially accepts him into their gang. Bubble began to yawn and mentioned that maybe she would log out of the game because she really wanted to sleep. Dom agreed that she should log out and suggested that she contact him when she logs back in. She exited the game, and Dom and Chapo continued on their way. When they reached the designated location, Chapo started waving his hand and shouting loudly, calling for Gordo. Upon seeing the boss, Gordo and all the skeletons rejoiced at the return of their leader. Dom informed them that he had returned and knew what had happened during his absence. He then asked if Gordo had noted information about those players. He's back, so it's time for revenge. Gordo responded with a malicious expression on his face, saying that yes, they had planned to gather more money to hire an assassin, but they decided to discuss it when he returned. Dom proudly replied that he expected nothing less from them. But what about little Cole? Asked Dom. He wanted to see the little one. Dom picked up Cole in his arms, and after examining him carefully, Dom said that this is indeed a skeleton from a black family. Only 2 such representatives are known on the entire continent, so counting this one makes it 3. Cole spoke to him, looking directly into his face, and called him old. Dom thought about it and said that he can't even speak properly yet. Gordo opened his arms and replied that it's not true. He said that on purpose. He prefers to call him Old Dom. Dom sat at the table and spoke with a confident look, stating that their new goal is their retraining, and it's not about reincarnation. They need to reach the 6th rank in 4 months. Meanwhile, Cole, Gordo, and another skeleton listened attentively. Dom had not yet explained the entire system to them. Mage, warrior, beast tamer, monk, and engineer are connected. Training in Azure is a combination of racial and professional skills. With each new rank, there's an opportunity to gain new skills, rare quests, or professions. For example, Bubble, a beast tamer, chose the taming skill, and after advancing a rank, she continued with the taming skill, so she can have 2 pets. Yiwu and Guling could choose one of the additional weapon upgrades or additional physical skills. The choice of classes will affect skills and different fighting styles. Zhonglu Yue can choose a class that will be useful both in battle and for peaceful life in general. It's better to choose a main class and continue to improve it. Even when adding a new class, each of their classes will somehow be connected to the base, but the main class will be available after the 3rd rank. However, the materials for this process are individual for each. Many quests for this must be completed individually, and there are requirements for certain skills. Subsequent ranks don't particularly affect the style and efficiency of the game, so few people develop further. Often, players stay at a certain stage because Azure is not just about battles and fights. Here, one can manage cities, produce resources, or create their own institutions. There are also very strange establishments, such as a city in the East, which uses special algorithms to create scenarios where players buy something for a lot of money. Players in such establishments can play different roles, solve different problems. The scenario is very realistic, and this attracts a huge number of people who love logical puzzles. Some even put special attractions in the city. For example, the tallest roller coaster in Azure. With the help of various elements, new varieties of plants can be developed, or one can even create a little friend to take care of, like a cute cat. The sensation of soft fur and warmth is no different from real feelings. There are even players who cannot distinguish virtual reality from reality, which reality is more natural. The most amazing thing is that when a person enters the game, they can actually feel the magic flowing through their veins. However, as this is a government project, there are many mysteries and speculations that cannot be proven. They have a lot in common with regular players. They share the same goal, and everyone must do their best to stay ahead and compete on equal footing with the top guilds when the main mission opens in 4 months. Gordo replied, expressing his assumption, stating that if they enter the city, then in that case they will be killed immediately, and there's almost no Tamir who trusts them. Dom responded confidently that this wasn't entirely true, because he has a friend. After a while, Yuko and Cece arrived at their camp, waved their hands and greeted everyone with a smile, saying they had come here as agreed. They sat at the same table, and Cece happily sat next to Dom, looking at Gordo with Cole. Dom turned to her, puzzled, and asked if she was almost at the 3rd rank. She replied, a bit embarrassed, that yes, she hadn't been in a hurry because she wanted to fight at a low level. As soon as the tournament ended, her assistants started helping her collect materials to level up. They brought various things to her, and one of the guys said that it's a transfer kit in her hands, recommended by a professional analyst. At the same moment, someone offered her the fruits of experience. Dom said that experience fruits aren't very useful. They only give 1 level and cost 500 gold, and players usually only consume them when they're almost at the maximum level. Dom asked if she's using it as a snack. In response, she asked if they're not a snack and mentioned that she has many of them. She handed a fruit to Cole, whose eyes shone, and his mouth salivated with curiosity. He quickly grabbed the fruit and started eating it. Cece asked him not to rush and to chew carefully. Looking at Cole, Cece told him that if he goes with her, he can eat as much as he wants. In amazement, Cole threw the fruit on the table. Cole ran behind Dom's arm and said that then he won't eat, and he doesn't want to leave. Dom told Cece not to scare him. They agreed that if the local skeletons wanted to follow her, she could take them. They made a blood oath about it. In the game guide Azure, a blood oath is the most reliable way to seal an oath in Azure. where the system becomes a third party, monitoring the fulfillment of the agreement's terms, and in case of a violation of the agreement, penalties are applied. She responded with a smile that he shouldn't worry about it, and it's the most valuable thing that can't be bought with money. She served the fruit to Cole again, who hid behind Dom and invited him to just eat it for free. Then, Cece asked Dom why he had called her there. She assumed that she should provide protection to his skeletons or help them level up. Dom replied that it would take many tamers to cover each skeleton. After these words, he turned to Yuko and asked if she brought what he had requested. She took out a piece of paper with some inscriptions and drawings and told him that this is an advanced training method which she obtained from a protected state file. She managed it with the help of her connections. Still, due to the complexity of the process, she will only be able to bring a few with low qualifications. Dom thought and suggested that they need to find another way and how they can do it faster. Gordo realized something and told the others that he had an idea but didn't know how possible it was. He began to explain the whole situation to them, to which Yuko replied that she would try. Cece said it sounded fun, so she would also try. They left the room and Gordo turned to Dom, asking what they had talked about. He replied that he just sold him. These words surprised Gordo and he shouted back with a scared expression on his face. Dom replied that he was joking about it. He just thought that he should try to consider all the city residents as regular players, not enemies. It won't be easy for them to enter the city, so why not bring the class exchange center here, said Dom. Gordo asked again if that was really possible. Dom replied with a smile that they would try, as Yuko has connections in the city, although he admits that they are testing their luck. After this dialogue, Dom asked Gordo to show him the camp again. After a while, Yuko shouted with incredible joy and pleasure, exclaiming that Dom's plan had worked. He asked her if this was really true. She replied that an official had agreed to help them set up a training branch right there. Initially, they were refused, stating it was entirely impossible, but then Cece said she was willing to invest in their venture, and they simply couldn't refuse them. Cece sighed and said she doesn't understand these NPCs, as they are too greedy. After hearing what she said, Dom happily responded that no matter what, they are celebrating the opening of the training branch in the skeleton camp. After some time, Bubble returned to the game and saw a note with a stone on top. She picked up the note and it said she should head to the camp immediately after being online. She approached a new camp, at the entrance of which 2 formidable goblins stood guard. As she approached the gate, the goblins blocked her path with their swords. Startled by their action, she jumped back in fear, and they shouted that they were welcoming her. This is a new city, and without the skeleton registration to enter the city, she won't be able to visit, said the goblin. Bubble opened her mouth in surprise and asked how long she slept and what happened there. She asked the goblins if they hadn't heard of Dom, as she is his owner. The goblins were shocked by her statements and wondered if she was talking about the city's boss and if she is Miss Bubble. They immediately opened the gate for her and apologized for their rudeness. She should proceed. One of the goblins showed her a gold badge with a skeleton and said it is customary here to wear their badge, given to all recognized players. She entered and saw many skeletons going about their business, not standing idle, continuing to build the city. She was very surprised as she walked the city streets and marveled at everything, shocked at how fast this camp is developing. She came across a statue in the shape of a squirrel and wondered what it was. The following words were written on the monument: "Those who break the rules will suffer the same as this squirrel." Bubble thought, and wondered if this is the same guy who tried to deceive her a while ago. She approached a small house, entered, and called for Dom inside the room. Dom was at the table, surrounded by many papers and documents that Gordo, Cole, and another skeleton helped distribute information that more and more goods were coming to the city. Dom replied that some materials unsuitable for skeletons could be sold to other monsters. Gordo also suggested that specialized shops could be built. One of the skeletons said, while continuing to organize the papers, that he also informed some of the self-aware monsters that they could join them, and was still waiting for a response. At this moment, Dom realized something ahead and saw that Bubble had already arrived to them, and joyfully said that Bubble was back. She looked around and asked how they managed to develop that place so quickly. He replied that he worked hard in the past few days, that it was a long story, and he would tell her later. She replied okay, and asked about the guy in the square. He said something funny happened. After the squirrel failed to take the camp, he focused on selling information to Cece, calling her Miss with a tight smile. He said he had information about the skeleton camp. If the price pleased her, he guaranteed that the obtained data would not disappoint her. Then he asked if she liked his proposals. If she really wanted Reveng, then she could trust him. She said that first of all, she was the owner of the camp, and after the tournament, Dom contacted her and provided all the information she needed. These words surprised the squirrel a lot. He asked what she said, and she placed a glass of champagne on the table, replying that, in business, sincerity and trust are the foundation. Instead, he was just a common thief, ready to do absolutely anything for money, even in a game. Azure really makes people cruel. She clapped her hands, and at that moment, 2 guards approached the squirrel and grabbed his arms. She said for the last time that her family deals with people like him. He understood that this was bad. He smiled and turned again to the miss, asking for forgiveness. And at that moment, he thought he needed to leave the game immediately. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to handle in a combat state. That was simply impossible. She asked the guards to watch him for a while, after which he turned and walked away, thinking that he wanted to use her, playing with her feelings, but he attacked the wrong person. At that moment, Gordo and 2 other skeletons found themselves in a clearing in the forest. They stood facing each other and looked into each other's eyes, after which one of the skeletons disappeared. At that moment, Gordo felt something behind him and turned abruptly. Gordo's head, as well as all his bones, scattered into pieces to avoid the attack. After that, he reassembled himself and, with total confidence in his strength, struck the ground, splitting it into several parts. Following that, a huge fissure formed in the ground, in which that same skeleton was found. At the same time, another skeleton approached with a magic shadow. The buried skeleton quickly rose, and both attacked Gordo. At this moment, Dom, who was nearby, shouted at them to stop. Gordo grabbed his opponent's hands, and Dom spoke to Bubble. After reaching the 2nd level, they chose different abilities. In Azure's game development, advancing in class means the avatar will evolve into similar species. For example, a skeleton can grow flesh and blood and become an undead, a human can turn into a zombie, and even a snake can become a dragon. Gordo did not change his race. He chose to strengthen his defenses for his first advancement, and for the second, he chose the path of the standout weapon. Thus, he can use his own bones as weapons. Slim decided to become another form of undead. He spiritualized his physical body, increasing his speed. In general, they made a really good choice, but they lack experience. Dom spoke with Slim and said that after separating the spirit from the body, he left the shell in an unsafe place, easy to find. Dom, with a whip in his hands, said they need to keep training. Only then will they truly become feared. Dom told Cole that he shouldn't get too used to the piece. Later, Dom will fight with him. Cole was very surprised by these words and was stunned for a moment. After a while, a goblin approached the small camp house and greeted the boss, reporting that the construction of the city was almost complete. Dom replied that it was good work and said there weren't many awakened goblins, and all this time, they took charge of planning and building. The city was a great help. The goblin responded that they faced a serious obstacle due to their monster nature. Although the basic issues of communication with the city people have been resolved, they still need some materials to communicate with the city and NPCs. Even wild monsters are easier to talk to than guards. Most of the time, they just stare at them or hit them. The development limits of monsters are too large compared to players, said Dom. He will need to contact the academy, where training will be much easier. Additionally, he will receive additional information about the nature of NPCs. But for now, they will see how they can quickly move to the 3rd level. Cece's guild provides information and helps defend the city, so they can trust him. Cole will go with them to the academy because his development speed is higher than each of them. There, he will have many more prospects. Gordo turned to him like a senior and said he shouldn't worry and should go quietly to the academy. In his absence, he will do everything he can for the city. Dom replied with a thoughtful look, happy that daily training had been cancelled. Cole looked at Gordo with tender and teary eyes and said that Gordo should definitely wait for them and old Dom. They will come soon, and with level 6 when he arrives, he will defend the camp from all enemies. Gordo replied that everything would be fine while he was in the city. He would be safe with Dom, but he shouldn't forget. He shouldn't eat anything if he doesn't know where it comes from, and also not trust others too much, and remember the instructions of the elders. At that moment, Dom and Bubble were walking down the street, and Bubble said that a month had passed and school would begin. She would miss the slow pace of life there. When they first arrived in the city, they walked the same way. There she tried milk tea for the first time. Dom said, "Speaking of which." They stopped, and he told her that he founded a cafe in the city called Bubble Milk Tea Shop, although it still needs work, as not all the ingredients have been delivered completely, but next time they return, he thinks they can have a cup of tea. Bubble really liked that idea. Her face blushed with embarrassment, and she thanked him for his gesture. Cole shouted, waving his hand, saying that next time he also wants to try milk tea. Dom replied that there is plenty of food in his bag and asked if he still wanted milk tea. Bubble replied that it was okay. Cole should eat and drink a lot to grow and become a big, healthy skeleton. Dom said they spoil him too much. Cole will have to train a lot to live on his own. Cole said again that he just wanted milk tea. They went further, and after a while, they entered a room where they were greeted by a beautiful girl with wings who welcomed them, saying welcome to Divine Academy. She is their personal guide and now asks them to follow her. She will give them a tour, but first, they need to get to the school grounds. Cece asked Dom why he turned into a vampire again. He replied with a smile. While he is at the academy, he wants to separate these two images, to make the image of vampires more visible at school because he intends to declare himself as a high-level undead. He is especially dangerous. Monsters that always attract the attention of players, but with a skeleton, it is much easier to communicate. In the understanding of others, they are not dangerous, it is convenient to set up ambushes. Hong told Cece that this skeleton is a bad player. She shouldn't learn anything from him. The girl continued to explain that the academy consists of 7 floating islands. The central one is a training area. The other islands are residential areas, as well as workshops for the 5 main professions. The academy's missions are located here, and the rewards for completing them are very generous, much more than the rewards for regular missions. That's why the exams at the academy are difficult. After the first year, students can choose another place of study, and after the second and third year, another profession, according to the instructions of the teachers. Anyway, the school's forces are determined by the geographical location of these buildings, so each academy has its own entrance exams. For players who fail the entrance exams, they will have to enroll in other schools. However, Azure always gives chances for hidden talents of low levels, and players who failed to prove themselves again. But basically, the level of the academy is very important. The Divine Academy is one of the top 3 in the world. They have 2 of the top 10 fighters from last year. They teach many other specialties besides combat professions and also have the best teachers in the entire system. They have training fields where students can practice techniques and gain experience faster and more efficiently. This is a huge time saver compared to endlessly fighting monsters and completing missions. Dom said, after hearing this, that he knew the training here was quite fast, but he didn't expect the academy to be so equipped. He thought it would have been great if he had such equipment at the beginning of his journey. He spent a lot of time at low levels, which made him very annoyed. Hong thought about it and said that it didn't make sense because they have exactly the same training field in the guild. Dom said that the rich are not allowed to speak. The girl continued speaking, and the last thing they need to do is find out what level they are currently at. The mirror will measure their agility and reaction level, as well as the speed of brain synchronization. Brain synchronization often affects the connection between the real body and the virtual body, meaning the speed at which commands are received from the brain to the body. On average, players' synchronization levels range from level B to C. A brainwave synchronization rate of about 85% is considered high. As expected from top students, their overall reaction levels and brainwave synchronization rates are excellent. Cece reached out to the mirror, and the mirror determined that the skill analysis system was complete. Brainwave synchronization frequency 79%, transfer level 3, level 100. Named player qualities determined. Now there will be a reaction test. The girl began to explain, pointing to a red device. This machine will attack her with balls, and she will have to hit them back. Her task is to resist as much as possible while the firing speed gradually increases. At that moment, The machine started shooting at her. She began to dodge, which was a complete failure. Her time was 1 second. The girl was upset and spoke confusedly about such brainwave synchronization and reaction speed. Why doesn't she use them? She scratched her head and said embarrassedly that it seems everything was because of the artifact. It was so expensive, but now everything is fine. She has enough money, and she winked. Dom was surprised by this and said she mentioned something about a lot of money. She must have spent a lot. Hong walked up to the magic mirror and reached out. The mirror identified, preparation of the skill analysis system complete. Brainwave synchronization frequency 90%, transfer level 6, level 100, named Jing Hong, creature type player. He also found himself in this space, opposite a magical machine that suddenly started shooting balls at him, of which he managed to easily dodge. His reaction level was S+. The girl was pleased with this and said it was simply wonderful. His synchronization level was one of the top 4, and he also had a wonderful reaction. After him, Dom approached the mirror, which made all the same movements, and the skill analysis system showed that preparation was complete. His brainwave synchronization frequencies 100%, transfer level 2, level 85, unidentified name, pet creature type. Dom wondered in surprise if his brainwave synchronization was really 100%. The girl hit him on the head with a hammer and shouted, what else could the system show besides 100% mental synchronization, and said he shouldn't mess around there. He scratched the back of his head in pain and thought that he used to have an 80% rate before becoming a monster. He remembered that the synchronization rate couldn't change. After him, Bubble approached the mirror, which also reached out, and the skill analysis system reported that preparation was complete, brainwave synchronization frequency 95%, transfer level 1, level 60, named Bubble, creature type player. The girl set off a firecracker and happily congratulated her. Her brainwave synchronization rate was the highest this year, coupled with the high level of her pet, allowing her to rank 9th among the top rookies. She found herself in that testing room, opposite the ball machine, and the girl repeated that Bubble's brainwave synchronization was 95%, but wondered what her reaction speed would be. Suddenly, balls started coming out of the machine, and the first ball flew straight to Bubble's forehead, who screamed in pain. The girl said with a disappointed expression on her face, wondering who these top 10 of the year are. Bubble replied that she indeed had a bad reaction. She hadn't played sports since childhood. The girl responded, upset, that it's normal. After all, she is an animal trainer, and the requirements can't be too high. Now they should head to the dormitory. They found themselves in front of a beautiful 3-story building, in front of which there was an incredibly beautiful fountain. The girl told them that this is where they would relax, and these are their room numbers. A little later, she would show them how to use them. Bubble had the number 621, and Cece had the number 622. They started walking towards the dormitory, but suddenly the girl flew up to Dom, apologized to him, and said that pets were not allowed in the dormitory. They could take them to a special place for animals, or arrange for shelter. Bubble told her that it's a stupid rule, and in that case, she didn't want to live there either. Dom told her it was okay and it's good to experience this. Dom told Bubble to take a look at the dormitory, and he would wait for her in the pet area, while she looked with a frustrated expression on her face. Cece thought that this was indeed a stupid rule, and would definitely see if she could invest in the academy and change the rules. The girl showed them how she created 2 clones of herself, saying that this was her splitting ability. She would lead them to their rooms, and they should follow her. Bubble entered the room and wondered, confused, why it was so empty there. The girl replied that she could change the situation herself with the help of her imagination. She began to show how this could be done, and continued to explain that this is also one of the privileges of a successful student. She pointed to an imaginary bed with the words, "How I want to sleep," and explained that when she wants something, she just needs to say it out loud. The girl flew to the refrigerator and explained that recently it appears inside the room according to the same principle, available 24 hours a day and in unlimited quantities, but the items that appear cannot be taken out of the room. The floor, ceiling, and walls can also be changed. For example, she can relax while watching the Milky Way or read a book under a clear blue sky to clear her mind. The maximum area of the object in this space is about 10 meters by 10 meters. so she can enjoy her own pool, the temperature of which she chooses, or relax in a comfortable and high-tech massage chair. Bubble sat in a chair and spoke with pleasure that it is very relaxing. The girl handed her a book and said that she could find all the other information in this manual. She shouldn't hurry and she should enjoy life. The girl would leave now but could be contacted at any time, after which she slammed the door and left. Bubble looked around the room and said that it was a wonderful room where any food could appear. This was her room. Meanwhile, in the pet dormitory, Dom was in awkward conditions among various pets that surrounded him and treated him like a pet. A sharp-toothed wolf even licked his cheek. Cole, calling Dom old, asked when Bubble and Cece would come to pick them up. He replied that he didn't know, but asked the wolf if it could stop licking him because its breath stank. Suddenly, Bubble woke up abruptly in her room, took off the virtual reality glasses, and screamed in horror that this was the end. Yesterday, she fell asleep in her room while watching a movie at the hot spring, and when she woke up, she found that the game had shut down. Bubble entered the pet dormitory, apologized to Dom, and said she came to pick him up. However, there was no one there except small winged animals. She looked around the entire room with a surprised expression on her face, but at that moment, the girl shouted to her, saying that she's finally online. She said that Dom caused a big scandal in the academy yesterday. Yesterday, in the animal stables, Dom was among many monsters and mentioned that it was very crowded there, and he had no one to talk to, and all these large animals were also stuck there. One of the pets approached him and said that he could come there if he really wanted. She asked if he was a new pet. Dom was surprised that there were pets there that could communicate, after which that same pet said, "Hello," and mentioned that her name is Neon too. Her owner calls her Neon. She is at level 100, rank 4 of the transfer. She mentioned that she had been there for 10 years. Dom was very surprised by this statement and wondered if it really was 10 years. At that moment, he thought that time passed more quickly in the game. She had been offline for 2 years. Neon continued to explain that her owner went offline 10 years ago and hasn't returned since. Something must have happened. At that moment, he thought exactly as Jiang said. Some NPCs were able to awaken consciousness. It turns out that this is also possible with high-level monsters. Dom, with a sad expression, asked her if she stayed there during those 10 years. She replied that before leaving, the owner told her to stay there and wait for his return. It's very boring here, but the idea of meeting the owner again helps her not to give up. Dom asked her again if she had ever thought of leaving. She replied with a sad expression that she must wait for her master and she cannot leave. Dom said in response that her master probably won't return again. These words left her very upset. She spoke with a trembling voice that this simply couldn't be true. Afterward, she started screaming at him, accusing him of lying because she had waited for him for 10 years. Her entire body lit up with magical light. Dom avoided her gaze and said that this is bad. She is angry. Dom told Cole that he should get out of there and open the door. Cole heard his order and replied to him with a serious, "Okay, old man." After which he ran to the rescue and crossed the magical barrier and opened the doors. The rest of the animals looked at this with amazement, and Dom with a smile slapped a rhinoceros's buttocks, and they all started running. Dom, as the king of cattle, rode on top of the rhinoceros. The girl continued to scream angrily. This happened for the first time in the history of the academy. He illegally released all the pets. Now the teachers are forced to capture pets throughout the school. Bubble asked, "Where is Dom now? What is happening to him?" The girl replied that no one has seen him since he escaped. They only have cameras available in their territory, so they lost track of him since he crossed their threshold. The girl asked Bubble to contact her pet, as she will help the academy look for other pets. And when she finds him, she should follow her to the vice director's office. She looked at her system window, and Dom's pet was messaging her. He said he was on the main campus and asked her to come quickly. After a while, Bubble was on the campus, where Dom called her in the form of a skeleton. She approached him and asked if he had released all the pets. He replied yes, but everything was fine. He transformed into a skeleton when he left there. Moreover, the entire teaching staff believed that some skeleton, for some reason, opened the dormitory gates. Then he pointed his finger to the side and asked her to look there. It was a pet that had been waiting for 10 years for its owner, and finally, they were reunited. After some time, they found themselves in the vice director's office, who scolded them for why they behaved horribly in the first days of training. Dom smiled and replied that in a second, he would come up with an excuse. Nyan shouted that Dom was not at fault for anything. He just helped her find her owner. The vice director shouted that he didn't give her the floor and continued to say that a total of 163 pets were returned to the dormitory. There were still 3 monsters whose owners hadn't visited the academy for a long time. No one recognized them, and during the escape, the animals caused serious damage to the academy building and attacked the teachers. Many teachers who lacked combat skills were forced to defend themselves as best as they could. Cece said with a smile that she could cover all the costs. The vice director slammed the table with his fist and shouted, "What kind of impudence is this?" His academy had its own way of dealing with these situations. Monetary transactions in the academy were only possible up to a maximum of 1,000 gold coins, so they would have to come up with another principle to solve the problem. As for them, they were not very successful students, but from what he remembered, they were in the top 10, so their task was to find all the remaining pets and take care of the dormitory. If this was not done, he would deal with them personally. The girl turned to Director Louis and asked if that was the entire punishment. Dom turned to the director with respect and said, "Respected and charming Director Louis, if the animal goes to the dormitory or other places, what should he do if he can't get in there?" The director replied that this was a really good question. The entire school area was temporarily open to him, excluding restricted areas. Dom asked again if there were forbidden places there and where they were. But before he finished, the director was very surprised by something. Dom said it seemed that there were lost pets. They were going ahead in the search. After these words, they closed the doors on the other side. Louis was surprised by this and told the director that this young man is very clever. Immediately, as soon as he started looking for pets, he realized that in this way, he would achieve his free movement around the academy. The director responded through the digital screen, "Yes, he really should play a crucial role in the main mission. We need to keep him. He should help more in the upcoming missions." He decided to share the second clue with them to confirm his importance. He should not reveal his identity to the skeleton. It must be said that this is just another failed experiment. Reaching the 6th level is very difficult. The director has been following him for a long time. Probably he won't be able to handle it alone. At that moment, the director stopped talking, and Louis realized that he had fallen asleep again and said that he was repeating too frequently, which was confusing the readers. The group ended up together inside the school, and Nian apologized to Dom for being punished, but she said she would help find his pets. He told her not to worry about it, as this is a blessing in disguise. Now almost the entire territory of the academy was open to him. He wanted it so much, even the female dorms were open to him. The girl replied that there were no female or male dorms there. When he entered, he would just search for the pets and leave immediately. Dom said upon entering the room, "Is this what elves call universal housing?" He looked around, and Bubble, approaching him, said that she was very used to her real-world room, so she moved it there. At that moment, she thought embarrassed that there was a guy in her room for the first time. Suddenly, she realized and wondered why she was blushing because of her pet. Dom and Nian lay down on the bed, and he said with delight that he finally lay on a comfortable bed. Dom, turning to Bubble, reminded her that she had said they could watch movies there. He suggested they choose something together to watch, to take a break and relax. They would say they were busy looking for the pets. Bubble liked the idea. She grabbed a box of movies and said that all these movies were very interesting. Dom wondered why there were only romances there. She was embarrassed and said she would find a comedy. Nian picked a movie from the box and replied that she wanted to watch this one. Her owner used to read this story frequently. The girl entered their room and asked if he was really looking for pets everywhere. She simply didn't believe him. He replied, Okay, you got me." Dom responded that, in fact, he was playing chess. After some time, the girl continued to meet the new guests of the students. The bear and his wife Mang approached her. She greeted them and said she was their personal guide and would now take them on a tour. Mang wondered why she was so lethargic. The bear replied that he didn't know. Maybe it was hard work. They found themselves in a forest surrounded by many pets, and Mang, looking around, wondered if there should really be so many pets there. The guide had told them they needed to ask about the good things, after which she found herself in the vice director's office and shouted at him, banging her hands on the table, that she really hoped he was dealing with this problem. Louis asked if something strange happened with the boy again. She shouted at him that Now he is building a new dormitory, but she thought of everything in advance. In the beginning, Dom found all the owners of the pets and told them to take care of their responsibilities. Even at that time, he planned to make a complete system of it. Dom told the owner that their pet had run away and caused a lot of trouble for the academy, and it was quite difficult to catch him. The owner apologized to him, embarrassed, expressing deep regret that the academy had problems, and asked how the pet escaped. Dom blushed and shouted that she was asking too many questions. He quickly identified the awakened monsters and, with their help, coordinated the large and irrational ones. Now, at his request, his pets go for daily walks. He is a natural leader. Louis, seeing all that, said that it is really interesting. The girl started shouting angrily, but the permission given to him to visit the entire territory is simply a disaster. He grossly violates school discipline, and she won't stand for it. Louis replied that this is something more important for them than discipline, and she will understand it when he explains everything to her, after which he whispered something in her ear. With a frightened look on her face, she shouted back at him, asking if she has to endure him for another 3 years. He replied with a smile that it won't take 3 years. He is sure that Dom will complete the 3 courses much earlier. That time will be difficult for them. The girl replied that at least he took care of the pets. Returning to the bear and his wife, the girl said that they got to know the academy, and for daily arrangements, they need to find an instructor. In everyday life, they would need to find a suitable tutor for studying. They don't have a standardized schedule. They selected tutors for each of them according to their individual characteristics, and would give them recommendations on battle professions before completing the 3 courses. They chose the synthesis of the appearance of man and beast, but they need to clearly separate their consciousness. Their transformation will be more perfect if the monster's appearance is controlled by their own consciousness. As for mage training, they should go to Mentor Shenjin and ask for his blessing. In Shenjin's lab, a man asked Yuko to bring spare parts from the 3rd row, which made her very happy, and she said she would bring them right away. The mentor poured a red liquid over an offline player, and at that moment there was an explosion in their lab, and the man said, clearing his throat, that one more had failed. These offline player bodies are really strong. They don't disintegrate even a millimeter, even after using concentrated explosive solutions. Suddenly, he noticed the bear and Mang in front of him and wondered who they were. Mang said something in the bear's ear, and he said that this girl came to him as an apprentice, and he was assigned to teach her. The mentor asked if she was a tamer and if the bear was her pet. He told her she couldn't bring pets there. The man approached the bear, examined its eyes with a flashlight, and said that the body is in good condition, and the fusion is of high quality. The mentor addressed Mang, calling her little one, and asked her to lend her pet so that he could run some tests. He approached her and said that it might hurt a little, but at that moment, the bear interrupted his speech and said that he was also a student, and she was a mage who came to contact him. But suddenly the man interrupted him and said that he is a student from a different class. He just needs to take her to the older girl to look at the textbooks, and the old man will continue studying fossils. Yuko led them to the library and said that this was Professor's library. Here you can find many rare copies of books, as well as a large number of private manuscripts about players, even those from yesterday. The bear asked if he studied players only yesterday. She replied that interesting material had arrived. This player hasn't been online for 20 years, from the very beginning. If the player doesn't log into the game for 10 years, black and white messengers come for the body, taking it to distant islands. But the professor built a shield around his territory that can only be crossed by those who have permission to do so, and since the professor is the best mechanical mage in the Azure game, the black and white had no chance. That's why you can see various fossilized players in the academy. Mang told the bear with delight that he should just look at it. All the fundamentals of magic are listed here, and there is even information on methods of influencing the Azure in the real world. She said that this book reminds her of one of those books they have in the laboratory. The bear tells Yuko that he leaves his fiancée to her, and he himself goes in search of his mentor. He left with a piece of paper and said that he remembers that their mentor's pet is also an undead. He was looking for information about him earlier, with a legendary pet that hasn't responded for 100 years. The best of the best, the king of zombies.
If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, and like the video. Thank you.